Hey, Ben, how long ago is that picture from that you just had posted on there?
It's been a while. I think it might have been the first trivia night or one of the first trivia nights.
All right.
All right. It's now 6:45. I'm going to call the October 5th, 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting for Tiffin City Council to order. Is there any business for the council? Do we have any motions? Mayor.
Yes, Mr. President, we do have a couple of suspensions that we're requesting this evening. The first is ordinance 20-100. And the reason for that is it's just a donation to the Parks and Recreation budget. As we all know, we like to, as soon as we get donations, appropriate them so that the folks that are donating the money don't have their donations sitting and waiting. The next would be ordinance 20-107. That is the ordinance appropriating an $8,000 donation from the Tiffin Community Foundation. That is to be used for the last portion of the AEP electric vehicle charging stations here in the city. We were about $8,000 short on that project. Tiffin Community Foundation stepped up and agreed to cover the rest of that cost. And last but not least, ordinance 20-108. And that is just for the appropriation of the $633,580 of the third round of the CARES Act funding that we received. This is to actually appropriate the funds for the grant program that you all created last month. So I'll have an update during my mayor's report on how we are doing with CARES Act applications. The short answer is we're going to be out of money in no time. So very good news. But those are the three that I have this evening, Mr. President. I'm not sure if the law director or anyone else had any.
Okay. Law director.
Yes, thank you, Rich. Ordinances 20-101 through 104, 101, 101, 102, 103, 104, all involve the cooperative development agreements with Seneca County and the townships. So the expectation, and I've talked about this at prior meetings, about the substance of the agreement, the extension, the 20-year extension, and then also that procedurally, we would like those approved this evening so that we can get the agreement signed with the townships and the county and hopefully have an uninterrupted period of time where these cooperative development agreements are in place. So if there are issues related to any annexations that might be coming, any development coming with the city, that we won't have to worry about these agreements not being in place. So that's all four of those I would like to have suspended and voted on this evening.
Okay. Who signed those?
I did.
Who did?
I did, President
Fowler?
Folk.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, one other item that I have
Yes.
is to remind you and council that ordinance 20-105, which involves the creating a new zoning classification, that requires a tabling of that ordinance this evening because we need to follow the charter zoning measures provision, which requires a public hearing jointly with the Planning Commission no sooner than 15 days prior or after the introduction of the ordinance. So it needs to be tabled, and then a Planning Commission joint hearing needs to be scheduled. And I believe that there's been some discussion that should be then at your first meeting in November.
Okay. Who signed 20-105? Bridget?
Bridget.
Okay.
Yes. So then that's under, if I remember correctly, is that under motions then, Brent?
Well, in this case, normally it would, but in this case, you need to read it for the first time. So after its first reading, and that's been announced, that the president says that's the first reading of ordinance 20-105, then you would ask to have make a motion and have that seconded and voted on to table it.
Okay, got it.
I want to apologize for everybody for not being on the meeting with the townships to discuss these cooperative agreements. I talked to Brent, and I had the wrong day. So I apologize. I had told all of you that I was hoping everybody could listen in, and I'm the one who dropped the ball. So
On that subject, I know there were a few council members attended. I thought the meeting went as planned. There were no concerns. There were just a few positive comments, a couple questions, but are any of the council members, I'm curious as to what they thought of the very short, but I think necessary, of course, and productive meeting.
any comments? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
It went as I expected, so it was pretty quick, Mr. President, so you're okay.
Well, Councilman Leopard.
It was much like the one a year ago when we extended it for a year. Quick and easy, and everybody was understanding.
Well, when the law director and I talked about it, I commented when we went through this the first time, what a difference 20 years makes. It was a struggle getting everybody to the table and getting everyone to agree. But I think that it shows what cooperation can do, and I think now we've built some trust among the various governments, and we can work together, and everybody has confidence in our ability to do that. So this is a nice change. It's a sped up process, and we're all better off for it. So congratulations to everyone. I want to thank the law director, the mayor, and the city administrator for all their hard work on this and getting everything put together, and it's all for our benefit. Anything else? Councilman Schuff.
Yeah, I had a question for the law director. Law director, I was curious, do you know roughly or ballpark how many of the revitalization district permits that we have left here in the city? I mean, I've been in works with a few different small businesses. There's a few that are changing hands and some new things coming in. Do you know roughly how many of those we have available?
Yeah, and I heard downtown coordinator Amy, downtown manager Amy Reinhardt mentioned the number at the downtown celebration summit last week. I think she said 11 or 12 that were still available. And if anyone else might have heard that, but I believe that there's quite a few. It sounded like I was kind of surprised because I had not heard a recent figure, but it sounded, I think that was correct. And if anybody else recalls the number, and Amy is, I believe, going to join this meeting, so she might be able to tell for sure. And if she's there, she can confirm what that number is. Maybe she could text it to me or something to Mayor.
Thank you,
Quite a
law
few.
director.
Mayor?
Yeah, I didn't know if council had any last minute feedback on the DORA application. We did not have it this evening because we're waiting for one last piece of it. However, everything else is teed up and ready to go based off of our previous discussion. So I just wanted to see if there is any additional discussion from council, because at the next meeting you will be receiving that application. Like I said, it's 99.9% done. The only piece of it that we're waiting on is feedback from Mike Klepper and Andrew Kalnow of the East Green Foundation, because they have a meeting that unfortunately could not be scheduled until the 7th of October, which is Wednesday evening. And at that meeting, they're going to discuss if they want any part of, none, all, etc. of the amphitheater and National Corner site in there. So outside of that, My thought was on that site that since they are the owners, what the owners want is what I had planned to do. I know there was a couple of minor changes that were requested by building owners in the downtown, that information was sent out. So we need to know, because at the next meeting, the application will be submitted and it can no longer be changed at that point. So if there is any last minute feedback from council, I'd request that you please give that at this time, because once the application is submitted, there can't be any changes until the process is done. Obviously, if we pass it and council decides to make changes at a later date, we can always do that. It's just we'll have to start that process over and have the public meetings and the required processes that you must do.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to ask yourself for 5 or 6 minutes when we get to the door thing. I've had a change of heart, I guess, on the door application. I emailed Mayor Mons, said I didn't have any problem with, 22 Market and Red Raven. But then since that time, I said to myself, we're going to set a precedent if we start adding to the map a little bit, adding to the map, especially non-alcoholic establishments. And I communicate with him, parking lot 4. I'm not comfortable with parking lot 4 unless the Riverwalk is going to go into place. Then I can see how that would, but until that happens, I spoke with Amy Reinhardt. She told me that, not specific, but later on we can add things to it. So I'm going to throw a red flag up about adding parking lot 4. I believe that's the one, correct?
Yes, Councilman Jones, we've made the determination not to include parking lot 4. So
thank you, young man.
After your feedback, we decided not to include lot 4. So
okay, well, that's good news. And then my other 5 minutes is going to be worse news. When I said if we include Market 22 and Red Raven, then I'm thinking in the second ward, and I'll go on to the other wards. What is going to prevent McGowan's from saying, Councilman Jones, you represent McGowan's in the second ward, don't you? Yep, I want to be included in the DOOR program. And I will fight very hard for McGowan's to be into the DOOR program. Then I got to thinking, okay, and I can share this with the community or just here to come on committee whole. I know back in the 60s, and I know we're in 2020, back in the 60s, my vision of downtown Tiffin was a river to St. Joe's. All of a sudden, someone in the downtown committee decided Ralph number 2 is part of the downtown. Then we went on to Viaduct is part of downtown. Then we went on to Fort Ball Pizza is part of downtown. If McGowan's calls me and said, can we get in there? I'm going to say, I guess you're part of downtown. Then Three Oaks is going to call me, say, Councilman Jones, you represent us on 2nd Avenue, don't you? Yep. Can we get in the door? I don't see why not. We can, we got 48 acres. We can pencil in out Washington down 2nd Avenue, double barrel on, is it Warren or Sean? Can we get into the Dora? I guess I'll fight for you to get in that, and then we'll pencil it in there. Then, not in my ward. Now we're going into the city. I know I'm getting on my bandwagon, but Wall Street Cafe, can we get in that? It's up to some other ward to bring that up. Then someone's going to say, well, if we can get Wall Street in there, I want to walk down to Three Oaks. So now we're crossing railroad tracks, going out to Three Oaks. Then all of a sudden, we got Coco's Bar, we got Pioneer Mill. Can we get part of that? VFW on Nelson, the Amvets, Carmies, Benchwarmers, TJ Willie's. I'm citing all these because if we allow a little change for Market 22, very minor. If we allow Red Raven, very minor change. What's going to prevent McGowan's, Three Oaks, Double Barrel, and all these others to say, put us in there, and someone on the downtown committee is going to say, oh, that's not part of downtown. I don't want to burden Law Director Howard. Give us a definition of what specific is downtown Tiffin.
All right, so hold those thoughts, Councilman Jones, because we're gonna start our. We're gonna go out of the committee of the whole meeting, and I'm going to announce the meeting for Tiffin City Council, October 5th, 2020, is now in order. This evening, the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation will be led by Councilman Leopard. Councilman Leopard.
Please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Leopard. Clerk Ann Forrest, would you please call the roll?
Councilman Leopard,
Present.
Councilman Perry,
Here.
Councilman Schuff,
Here.
Councilwoman Boyle,
Here.
Councilman Gillig,
Here.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
Here.
Councilman Jones.
Here.
Let the record show that all 7 members of the council were present. Did everyone have an opportunity to read through the minutes? Are there any addition, Councilman Schuff? No? Okay.
I didn't have my hand up.
Okay. You lit up on me there. Are there any additions, deletions, corrections? All right, without objection, the minutes will be approved as presented. We'll move on to committee reports. Finance Committee, Councilman Gillig.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Law and Community Planning, Councilwoman Boyle.
No report at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Materials and Equipment, Councilman Jones.
No report, Mr. President, at this time.
Thank you. Personnel and Labor Relations, Councilman Perry.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Recreation and Public Property, Councilwoman Yanatuno.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Street, Sidewalks, and Sewers, Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Street Sidewalk and Sewer Committee meeting was held Thursday, September 24th, 2020 at the intersection of Erie and Olive Street. Attending the meeting were committee members Steve Leopard, Dawn Yanatuno, and Ken Jones, along with City Administrator Dale Thornton and Olive Street residents Pam and Paul Bonnell and Mrs. Lucius. Leopard called the meeting to order at 4:00 p.m. and stated that the purpose of the meeting was to discuss a petition dated September 15th, 2020, to investigate the possibility of installing several street lamps along the south side of Olive Street to Water Street. Leopard, Yanatuno, and Jones all reported they traveled this section of the street after dark within the last week and agreed that it was very dark. The only street lamps in the area are located at the intersections of Erie and Olive and Water and Olive. The length between those lamps are approximately 1/8 of a mile. Leopard reported that he had contacted the engineer's office for guidance and stated common sense was more of a determining factor than an assigned distance. Leopard reported that he stepped off distances between poles on his street. The lamps were placed much closer than 1/8 of a mile. City Administrator Thornton asked the residents if there were any current safety issues on the street. Their reply was no, but a former elderly person was targeted years ago with break-ins. Both Councilman Jones, along with the residents, noted that the street is used by grade school children and parents use this street as a convenient walking route to Noble School. Committee and residents walked the street and determined that AEP pole 644-063-93 would be an excellent choice to mount a street lamp. Location was discussed with Mrs. Lucius as the pole of choice was directly in front of her property, and she agreed that the location was okay with her. Motion was introduced by Jones, seconded by Yanatuno, and passed 3-0 to install a street lamp at the chosen location. No further business. Committee adjourned to 4:23 p.m.
Thank you, Councilman Leopard. Are there any questions for Councilman Leopard? Okay. Economic Development, Downtown Planning. Councilman Shuff.
No report at this time, Mr. President.
Okay. Does anyone see a need for a committee of the whole meeting? I just want to remind everybody that at our next council meeting, our committee of the whole meeting is going to be at 6 o'clock. The purpose is to discuss the new rate study that came out for sewers. All right. We'll move on to reports of the officers. His Honor Mayor Aaron D. Muntz. And before you report them, we'd all like to wish you a happy birthday, Mayor. Congratulations.
Thank you. Made it another year. I
Sometimes
appreciate it.
that's not all bad.
No, that's always good.
It
I'm sure glad I
Who brought the
appreciate
cake?
I appreciate it, Mr. President. All right. Good evening, council members. First up this evening, Kevin Vellatine from the Tiffin Fire and Rescue Division is here and would like to provide council with a short update. So I am going to bring Kevin into the room.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council. I understand you guys have a very busy agenda tonight, so I'll keep my statement short. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do this in person with you. Recently, I found myself and my family experienced an interesting dilemma. And as all of you know, at different times through our lives, we find ourselves at crossroads that as a result, we need to make difficult decisions. And I found myself at one of those recently. And as a result, I'm here tonight to announce my retirement from the fire division effective November 17th of this year. And prior to that, in order to utilize some of the comp time and things I've earned to get those times down, the circumstances have come up that made me basically have to make some very quick decisions. And in fact, actually my last day at work was today. So today was my last official working day. My retirement will be effective November 17th. And I wanted to make sure that you were the first to officially hear that from me prior to anybody else. But I wanted to take the opportunity to thank everybody, especially Mayor Montz, City Administrator Thornton, and all the council members for your support through the years, the opportunity that you've given me. I greatly appreciate the community's support, and hopefully everybody has a great future ahead of you and healthy, and we continue to prosper as we already are throughout the community. And thank you.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And I'm sure I speak for the council. You're going to be sorely missed. You've done an awesome job. You've worked hard. You're a smart guy. You've made our community safer and better. Really, this is tough. This is tough news for all of us. But we're glad for your service, and wish you nothing but the best for you and your family. God's continued blessings on everything that you do into the future. And thanks again for everything.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else, any members of council have anything? Chief, want to thank you for your service and your commitment to the city of Tiffin. And we really wish you the very best on the next step of your career and your future endeavors. Thank you for your service.
Again, thank you all. It's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to hopefully seeing you out in the street someday as a normal citizen. So, thank you.
Councilman Perry.
Just want to congratulate the chief and thank him for my #1 spot in the city government with my mustache now. So I've been naming that for that spot for a long time.
Councilman Jones.
I have a couple of serious things. Thank you, Mr. President, for Chief Valentine. He assisted in the second ward, 2 burnout structures. He was very proactive in correcting those. He was instrumental in getting our new fire truck in a while back. And on a lighter note, about 3 years ago, and can't blame him, I took my grandson down for a free tour of the fire department. They were selling t-shirts for $10 a piece. My free tour cost $20. I have not been back for a free tour since, so thank you.
Anyone else? Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I tell you, the thing that I've admired, quite a bit about Chief Valentine, along with, just the fact that serving in such an important role for our community's safety, is just the amount of dollars he's been able to bring back and save to the taxpayers of the city. I feel like almost every other month we were reading about some sort of grant that he obtained, and just a very, very smart, very forward-thinking, just phenomenal chief, and he will certainly be missed.
Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Chief, does this mean I'm off the hook on that bucket list promise about doing a controlled burn?
At least with me.
Oh, no, don't pass it on.
You'll have to, I would get a hold of the.
No, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Councilman Schaaf.
Yeah, Chief, just want to thank you for your service as well. And I'm going to echo what Councilman Gillig just said. I don't think you've been just a fire chief here for us in the city of Tiffin. I mean, you always go above and beyond. If I had a question with something as far as building code goes or safety, you guys have always provided good answers and help and assistance in all those fields. You just always go above and beyond. It's like you said, when you apply for these grants and the countless money that you've saved the taxpayers and citizens of Tiffin, it's going to be very big shoes to fill when you're done, and appreciate all your service, and God bless you in whatever you do.
Anyone else? Well, Chief, good luck.
Yeah,
And,
thank you. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. I truly do.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks.
All right. I just got to figure out how to get him back to his attendee role quick here. Here we go. There. All right. So with that said, and the retirement of Chief Valentine, as of 3 p.m. today, Deputy Chief Rob Chappell has assumed the position of interim fire chief, and we will begin the process of seeking the next fire chief here in the near future. So I've got meetings with the city administrator and others this week as we begin to plan out how that process looks. So we are currently in the market for a new chief of police to replace Fred Stevens, who retired to become sheriff. And now we will also be seeking a new fire chief. But I have complete faith in Deputy Chief, well, now Chief Rob Chappell, to handle the interim duties. We had a great conversation today, and he's excited to take the reins of the Tiffin Fire and Rescue Division for the foreseeable future until we are able to begin the process to hire a new chief in the permanent position. On to the next topic. I am going to begin to bring City Engineer Matt Watson and Superintendent of Public Works Brandon Berner in. Both of them obviously are engineers, and they have been working on some changes to, sorry, I'm trying to talk and click buttons at the same time. They've been working on changes to traffic signalization here in the community. and they are excited to give City Council some updates on some of the projects that they have been working on. So any second, you'll see City Engineer Matt Watson and Superintendent of Public Works Brandon Bernard drop in. Brandon, I believe you're on phone only and not video. So oh, no, you are on video. Okay, no, never mind. With that, Matt and Brandon, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Mayor, will you be able to have me have the capability to share my screen?
Yes,
I prepared a PowerPoint presentation for City Council.
That is right. I appreciate the reminder. So, okay, you should any moment have the ability to share your screen. All right, perfect.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Mayor and City Council, for Brandon and I to be able to provide you with an update tonight in regard to our traffic signals within the city of Tiffin. We're going to provide you an update in regard to some ongoing projects and some projects that we're proposing to improve traffic flow within the city of Tiffin. The first update we want to give you is in regard to the traffic signal timing study, which is the ODOT Systematic Signal Timing and Phasing Program. As many of you council members remember, earlier in the year, I came to council and gave you an update that we had applied for ODOT Systematic Signal Timing grant from ODOT, and we were successful with our application. And as a reminder, that program provided the city of Tiffin $50,000 in free consulting work, as well as equipment, which included GPS timing clocks to improve the traffic flow on both the Washington Street and West Market Street corridors within the city of Tiffin. Washington Street specifically between Sycamore Street and Frost Parkway, and West Market Street on the west side of town between US 224 and Hopewell Avenue. At this time, the consultant that ODOT hired to provide the study for the city of Tiffin, DGL, their study is now complete, and they have analyzed all the data that they needed to analyze throughout each corridor. They've generated models that show an improved traffic flow within each corridor. So now it's time to actually implement the timing into the traffic signals within each corridor. So moving forward, the implementation of the new signal timing is scheduled to begin on Wednesday of this week. It'll probably be a 2 to 3 day process to implement the new timing on each corridor. And so hopefully by this weekend into early next week, we'll see improved traffic flows both on Washington Street and West Market Street. And as the new timing is implemented, we'll continue to monitor and try to make any tweaks as necessary to ultimately have the best flow of traffic through each of the corridors. As we dove into this study, we also began having conversations amongst the Traffic Safety Committee in regards to the existing Opticom emergency preemption system in the city of Tiffin. And as a reminder, what that is, it's the devices that are placed on the traffic signals within a majority of the intersections that are signalized in the city of Tiffin that the emergency services such as police and fire use when they are called to an emergency situation. It allows them to trigger the signal to all red as they're going through the signal with lights and sirens. So we began to have discussions a while back earlier in the year as we've implemented new traffic signals within the city, primarily the West End development. Next year, we have a new signal being installed near the pit stop. And we've always had conversations with the police and fire chief in regard to whether or not the Opticoms are worth the price for future maintenance costs and equipment repair and replacement. And we've always had discussion that's kind of led towards we might as well not install the Opticoms at the new signals because we are mandated by a law to go through the intersections with lights and sirens anyway. So as we continued through this signal timing project and began having discussions with the Traffic Safety Committee, the police and fire chiefs were very supportive to ultimately improve the traffic flows in each of those corridors. It made the most sense to remove the opticoms, or at least on a trial basis, at the same time that we implement the new signal timing. So that being said, we also reached out to our law director, obtained a legal opinion. He agreed with that lights and sirens were ultimately mandated. However, the opticoms were not required for the city of Tiffin. So our plan is moving forward to remove the cards for the opticom system, but while also leaving the equipment in place. That way, as we implement phasing out the opticoms, if we see any emergency issues or safety issues after the removal, we can simply just move forward with the process of reinstalling the cards and restarting the opticom system through the city of Tiffin. So the plan is to remove all the opticoms with exception to the intersection of Perry Street and South Monroe Street, as well as Six's Corners. The reason to leave the Perry Street and Monroe Street opticom in place is often when the fire department has a call either on the north or west side of town as they leave Station 1, they're usually traveling in the opposite direction of traffic to that intersection. When they come out of Station 1, they're heading north on Monroe Street to the intersection of Perry. So we thought it was safest for not only the fire department and but as well as the traffic on both Monroe and Perry Street to keep that opticom system in place, as well as Six's Corners. Due to the uniqueness of that intersection, we have two major thoroughfares as well as two secondary streets all coming into the same location. The uniqueness of that also led us to believe that we should leave that opticom in place. So furthermore, as I said, the opticoms, the reason for the removal is to ultimately enhance the traffic flow throughout the city, primarily these corridors. I've also spoke to the city electricians, and when either one of the emergency departments, whether police or fire, trips the opticom system, it does take 3 to 4 signal cycles in order to get that system back to functioning on normalcy. So a typical traffic signal cycle is 120 seconds. So if it takes 3 to 4 signal cycles to go back to normalcy, you're talking 360 to 480 seconds, which is also 6 to 8 minutes before we have a normal traffic flow through each of the corridors. And that's just if it's tripped once. But if the opticom's tripped multiple times, say there's a call that requires both police and fire, and say one of the emergency services goes through and 2 minutes later another emergency goes through that same intersection and trips the opticom, you're starting that process at 360 to 480 seconds over. So we just felt moving forward that we give this a trial period. And as I said, the new signal timing is going to be implemented later this week, and hopefully we can see some improvements in each of the corridors as early as next week. Moving forward, another benefit of receiving the ODOT systematic signal timing project from ODOT was it really forced us to focus and shift our attention on the traffic signals in the city. Sometimes we might overlook the traffic signals compared to other components of our infrastructure. And this program's really allowed us to, just kind of look at how all of our signals are currently operating in the city of Tiffin, not just the signals in the Washington or Market Street corridors. So this program that ODOT provided us also kind of shifted the Traffic Safety Committee to also have further discussions on traffic signal warrants within the community. The Traffic Safety Committee annually receives numerous concerns from citizens in regards to the operations of the city's traffic signals. Information and data pertaining to each of the signals within the city of Tiffin is pretty much non-existent. So since I took over as the city engineer, Brandon and I have went through all the files of the city and Tiffin engineer's office, and really we could not come up with any data for any of the signals within the city of Tiffin, whether they're warranted, what's the traffic counts, etc. Also, same goes for out at Public Works. The data is just non-existent and not there. So to be able to effectively answer replies from the citizens, we do not have the correct data or data at all to go off of. So the objective moving forward is to basically gather up-to-date information in regard to traffic and pedestrian volumes, turning movements, vehicular spacing, and crash data to ultimately gain a better overall understanding of the demand and safety of each existing traffic signal within the city of Tiffin. Once that information is obtained, we can use that information to have future discussion and or decision making versus the Ohio Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, OMUTCD, the criteria for traffic signal warrants. And if a signal is determined to be unwarranted, we can analyze that data further with the OMUTCD's multi-way stop criteria. So ultimately, the plan is to gather the data and possibly provide a recommendation to City Council. Ultimately, the decision to remove any traffic signal in the city of Tiffin requires City Council approval. So we are just simply trying to collect data so that we can provide responses back to our residents, as well as potentially use that data to provide any sort of recommendation that we can to City Council to ultimately improve traffic flow and safety within the community. While we're also analyzing the data, we will also look further into each signal to look at, some signals are tripped by vehicle detection or just being simply on a timed matter. So some traffic signals have loop detection on the minor roads. So an example would be Webster Street and North Washington Street. As you approach that intersection on Webster, as you stop at that red light on Webster Street, there is loop detection within that pavement surface that detects that there is a vehicle at that intersection. That then triggers the traffic signal to ultimately turn that traffic signal red on Washington, which allows the traffic from the secondary street, Webster Street, to turn onto Washington. So we're going to look at things like that. What is the best approach to ultimately improve the traffic flow? And bringing up that intersection of Webster and Washington Street, I think about a month ago when I was really starting to focus on traffic signals and the operations through the community, I did approach Webster or Washington Street on Webster from the eastbound side of Noble School. And it was the middle of the day. There was very limited traffic on North Washington Street. I was the only vehicle that pulled up to the intersection, and I stopped and I needed to make a left-hand turn onto Webster onto North Washington. Traffic was stopped on North Washington for me to make that left-hand turn. I probably could have made that left-hand turn very safely if that signal was in flash. I was the only vehicle at that intersection. But we ultimately stopped the traffic flow on our major thoroughfare through the city in order to let one vehicle come out into the intersection. So, we're going to look at traffic volumes throughout the city, try to figure out the best approach in order to improve traffic flow through all corridors while also trying to sustain traffic coming off of the secondary streets. So we're going to look at it in all facets. We're also going to look at hours of operation. Maybe that loop detection made sense, but not at the time that I might have been there. Maybe it makes sense between the hours of, just throwing something out there, 7 and 9, and also 2 to 4. And, you can also look at seasonal. Should it run 24/7 or should it run 3 months a year or whatnot? So we're going to look at all facets of each signal. And also one of the objectives of the traffic warrant study is to reduce current and future operational expenses. Brandon's on here from the public works side. He'll provide an update later, but some of our equipment within the city on a lot of our local traffic signals, such as the one in the picture here at Melmore and Circular Street, has a lot of obsolete equipment, which also requires a lot of additional costs to keep the signals in service. So the plan moving forward with the traffic signal warrant studies is the Public Works Department with the City Engineer's Office. We coordinated and identified 15 existing signals that we felt were justifiable of a study. We took these 15 signals with a plan to the Traffic Safety Committee, received their support, and basically we itemized the 15 existing signals and a prioritization of 1 through 4. Priority 1, we identified as signals that have obsolete equipment and also where we've received citizen concerns. And we prioritize those as 1, and we are looking to move forward with a traffic signal warrant study on each of these 4 signals as early as this week. We have a proposal from a consultant to assist us with this process. We'd like to collect that data as soon as possible while the weather is still good, so that we can get an accurate count on pedestrians, specifically some of these being near schools. So as pedestrian counts are one of the components of determining whether or not a signal is warranted. So as you can see, our priority 1 signals that we'd like to monitor and least obtain analysis and data for are Circular Street and Main Street, Circular Street and Melmore Street, North Sandusky Street and Hall Street, as well as Coe Street and Jefferson Street. We've also identified priority 2 signals as signals where traffic patterns might be impacted by current or future projects. As I said, we have a lot of infrastructure projects, road projects being proposed in the future in the city of Tiffin that may ultimately impact traffic patterns near those existing signals. So we feel that those signals should wait to move forward with the study until we see how the traffic flows are impacted due to those projects. Priority 3 signals are all located near a school. As we all know, Tiffin City Schools ultimately has a plan in place to consolidate their school system into a K-5 school. So we felt it isn't worth the taxpayer dollars or fiscally responsible to move forward with any sort of study on any of those signals at this time until we get a better idea of what the school system plan is. So those signals will wait until we gather further information on the plan with the school. Priority 4 signals were recently updated, all have recently updated equipment from previous projects, and also we felt would not be fiscally responsible to move forward with the removal of any sort of signal when we've just invested a significant amount of money into each of those signals. So with that, we'll take questions later, but I think I've spoken enough, and I'll pass it on to Brandon to further give his analysis of the plan from the Public Works side.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. In one of these things that we get some attaboys and a lot of hey yous at Public Works, and I will tell you, it is not lost on me that no one likes to stop at a red light. Unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. But Matt and I, neither of us, nor do the city electricians, want people to have to stop more than they need to. And so this is really, a lot of times I think there's this concept that, over that you can figure this out by feel, right? That traffic signals, there's often this misconception that traffic signals will make an intersection more safe, bottom line period, no matter what. And that's really not backed up by the data. And that kind of attitude can lead to some more pervasive signals than what you need. And we've kind of run into that in some of these areas where maybe they were warranted before. But as we go through, like Matt said, you get in those areas and they're really not. And so as they get older and it's not worth the funding in the same way, our team tries to tackle what's the best way, what's the most economic way to tackle these. And I will tell you that there are several, and 3 of them that you can see there. As you can see, it says obsolete controller for their shortfalls. Well, that's a heck of a repair cost. So just like any electronic item, at some point you won't find replacement parts for it. The other thing that you won't find for those type of controllers, some of these older intersections, is the ability to tack on some of that really nice equipment. Those nice putting on a camera or providing special timing where you can figure out kind of wade through what driver attitudes and timings are and traffic volumes are and provide the best solution for the community. Well, we don't necessarily have that option. And I can tell you that several of these I've had calls within the last couple months, North Sandusky and Hall Street. Why do I have to stop at this light? It should be a stop sign. Doesn't make any sense. Same thing, Circular and Melmore, we're having issues with the actual controller is malfunctioning and we're getting put into flash a lot. Now, Mike Shannon and Steve Klaus have kept some of these older controllers on hand to address those type of things, right? We don't just throw them out and hope for the best, right? Those guys have their head on their shoulders. They keep that equipment. Sorry, I apologize for my environment. I'm trying to stay away from my wonderful children who are less than quiet, but I'll continue still. When we talk about those obsolete controllers, that, just to upgrade to a controller that is adequate is really, you're starting at $12,000 for all the kit and caboodle that goes into making that functional. And that's before you install that with the pole. Not to mention, we're paying $600 a pop just to run it on electricity each year. So those are no small costs, and they're well worth the money if we're keeping folks safer. But if we're not keeping folks safer and we're running into maintenance issues and we're spending too much time that is necessary, it's not warranted from a traffic standpoint, and then it's also not warranted from a maintenance standpoint. So Matt and I have done quite a bit, and these priorities are pretty important to both of us. I think we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what makes sense for our city, what makes sense for the next 5 to 10 years, and get ahead of it like that. And really, how do we get that? How and where do we invest our money to get the data that makes our residents safer and lets us run our city more efficiently? So with that, Penny, any questions for me specifically, I'll hand it back to Matt.
Thank you, Brandon. That was a great follow-up, and I don't have anything more to add, and just ask if council has any questions for either of us.
Well, if I could just start, I want to thank Matt and Brandon for all their work that they've put into this. And what we're basically telling council is this study is going to go forward unless you really want us to pump the brakes, because we need these intersections to be made safer. And I can remember, when I first started as mayor, going on 10 years ago, my first assumption was that a traffic signal makes an intersection safer. And it's kind of what Matt Watson talked about and Brandon talked about. It's actually not true. Sometimes traffic signals can actually make an intersection more dangerous. So these studies will help us determine what the safest route is as far as what type of signalization is at those intersections. So I would really hope if the study comes back and clearly and convincingly says that there should be either no signal or a signal that council is supportive of that. And hopefully we're not up there picking pet intersections that we really like the traffic light at, or we really have wanted a traffic light at, and that sort of thing. And we make these decisions based off science and facts from what the studies show. So I'll say that. And then the only other thing that I want to say, and Matt, I don't even know if you were able to see my text that I texted you in the middle of this. This is probably, Matt, and I'm joking, of course, the most important thing you're going to do all evening. Make sure, because you're the host of this meeting. So make sure before you leave the meeting, you make me the host, or you're going to shut the whole council meeting down. So if you don't know how to do that, while council members are thinking of questions they may have, go to where it says panelists. And if you see that and click the panelist list, it'll bring it up. And then if you hover over my name, it should bring up some options and then say make host, and you'll make me the host again. I just don't want to see you, once the questions are over, leave here and have the meeting shut down on everybody. All right, you did it. Thank you, sir. Okay, now we can open it up to questions now that we're in the safe mode. Thanks, Matt.
Does anyone have any questions for Matt or Brandon? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Just have a comment. As they were talking, I was thinking about those 4 locations, and I can see their point on all 4, and especially the one over there off of the bridge on Hall Street. It is so dangerous there with that traffic light, because people are always trying to cut out and beat it, and that street light will back up traffic to the point where people can't get off of Hudson Street, and then they're pouring over the bridge, and just kind of a mess there. And so, like I said, I could see valid points on all 4, and especially that intersection.
Councilman Leopard, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mr. President. How much do we spend on maintenance of Opticom every year? How much does the Opticom cost us to operate?
Offhand, I don't know. So that electrics is going to be wired in there the same. I don't know. I think that those costs often get eaten by the chiefs. Is that I don't see those costs because the repair and everything like that, it comes back to the public safety budget. So I couldn't tell you offhand.
That is
Mayor,
correct. Yeah, I also do not know what those costs are. I know that their concern was the age of the infrastructure, the Opticoms as well, and continuing to keep them updated with technology and cycling them out. There was a significant capital cost with each individual Opticom, as well as the equipment that is placed in each of the vehicles. Each fire truck and each police vehicle also has Opticom systems within them as well. So there's costs all across the board.
I guess I was kind of disappointed that the chiefs don't mind that they go away along with the traffic safety committee, because the thing I've been concerned about for a good number of years is with these sirens nowadays, you can be sitting in a red light and you can hear a siren and you cannot tell what direction it's coming from. That's why
Councilman Leopard, we understand it. And I think that's why we are definitely, this is not something that is a permanent step. This is something that we're doing on a trial basis. You know, Matt mentioned that earlier, where we pull the cards out of those boxes, those cards can be replaced. And so, you know, there's kind of two factors to that. One, when we do this change to the timing that Matt's worked very hard with ODOT to make sure we're getting the right set there. One, seeing what effect that has on traffic, and two, you know, if we need to put the cards in, it's as simple as that. We can put them back in. But having that deliberate discussion and taking that, you know, and having the law director explain to that, and responsible law enforcement and fire personnel out there to make that call and to make it wisely, rather than just, you know, ripping everything off. That's not what we're doing.
Thank you, Brandon.
Anyone else? Mayor?
Yeah, Councilman Leopard, Chief Stevens just sent me a message. He's watching this. He said that just the vehicles alone, it's $1,300 to $1,500 per vehicle for a new Opticom device. It depends, obviously, how often we get new vehicles, et cetera, each year, but they last 6 years or so in a vehicle before they need replaced, if the vehicle's not replaced before that. So that's what his message sent, but that doesn't take into account the other items on the poles and everything. But he did say that Mike Shannon said that the items on the poles are way more expensive than the actual thing in the car. So I'm going to guess it's over $2,000 for the thing on the pole. And a lot of the times it honestly depends on how much severe weather we have, lightning strikes, all sorts of things that play into that. But they're not cheap pieces of equipment. And we have to remember, at the end of the day, if that safety vehicle, if you watch them go through an intersection, typically, especially a traffic signalized intersection, they almost come to a complete stop anyways and look around, because they can still be held liable if they cause an accident entering that intersection. So at the end of the day, it's almost a false sense of security. I think even having something like this and just causing a lot of cost on the taxpayers.
Thank you, Mayor and Chief Stevens.
Anyone else? Councilman Shuff?
Yeah, thank you, President Folt. Yeah, I just want to thank Matt and Brandon for getting that presentation, and a lot of the intersections that you guys did bring up have been concerns for people, and I do think you like the way you prioritized it. You got the plan that you're working and putting in place, so I think this is all good stuff. But I had a question. In some of these workings that we've had with ODOT and the studies and whatnot that we've had done, did they have any recommendations as far as downtown goes with the one-ways on Monroe and Jefferson?
No, so I'll speak on that. Pretty much the grant that was provided to us from ODOT was scoped. It's federal funds, I believe, that are paying for it. So they're not going to alter their scope of work. So the scope was specifically tied to Washington Street, to analyzing the existing signals that were in place. So they didn't extend their scope to any other street, but the two streets that were scoped originally.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, Matt, Brandon, thank you for that presentation, and thanks for all your hard work.
Appreciate it.
Okay, well, I will get Matt and Brandon out of here real quick so they can go on and enjoy their evenings. We appreciate the both of you taking time this evening to join us for the meeting. Okay, Matt. There we go. I think I got them both. Yep. All right, perfect. Okay. On to other items. We have now entered into October. So we have the first 3 quarters of the year in financially wise with the city. Just to provide council and members of the public where we currently stand. We've known all along that we were going to take a fairly substantial hit to our city's finances because of the shutdown that lasted for essentially 2 months as ordered by Governor DeWine. Where we currently stand for the year, we are down approximately 2.7% revenue-wise, which is just over $216,000 of reduced revenue compared to 2019. But it's much worse when you compare it to the date of when the shutdown began around April 1st. From April 1st until last Friday, we actually are down 9.6%, which is over $500,000 of revenue we have lost since the statewide shutdown occurred. Folks, we're trying to get everyone back to work now. The problem is our unemployment is still at 7.4% here in Seneca County. We finished the month of September down 7.6% revenue-wise, which was right around $75,000 of lost revenue in the month of September alone. So it's just not good overall. People are not all back to work yet. Those that are back to work, some of them are on reduced hours. Many folks still on unemployment, which is causing a hole in our city's revenue at this time. So we're continuing to monitor things. As I've told you all along, the department heads have done a tremendous job at keeping general fund expenditures in line and tamped down as much as they can, whether it's been reduction in man hours, overtime reductions, other expenditures that are general fund items. They have done a tremendous job with that, and I commend the department heads and their staffs for really thinking outside the box at how they can not spend the dollars that they were originally appropriated this year on their budgets. But overall, we really need to get through this pandemic period because the city is not doing well as a whole financially when you look at those numbers. Thankfully, for January, February, and March, we had near record high income tax collections. And that is really the cushion that has gotten us through this point to only be down 216,000. But if you extrapolate the numbers and what we have lost per month, city administrator and I are expecting us to be down for the year somewhere between $300,000 to $400,000 of revenue by the time we close out this year from a financial impact on the income tax side of things. So just continuing to watch the budget like a hawk. We have budget hearings beginning with the department heads starting next week and lasting for the remainder of October. It's probably going to be the most difficult and time-consuming budget that we have done yet here at the city, knowing the kind of difficult financial situation that we are in. But I know we've got great department heads and their staff below them. We are up to the task, and we will present a budget to City Council that ensures the residents continue to maintain good service, especially when it comes to our safety forces, and do the best we can to get that budget to City Council by early November so that we can have things passed by the end of the year. So that's enough about that. Some other items. The City of Tiffin, in partnership with the Tiffin Seneca Economic Partnership, has launched the Dream Big Tiffin initiative. That is for residents, business owners, visitors, et cetera, to submit any kind of neat idea that they can think of so that we can kind of cobble this together into a database. So when new grant opportunities or new funding sources are discovered, or maybe somebody donates money to the community. It could be any of these reasons. We're able to then have this kind of ongoing hopper where all the information is. So like I said, residents, businesses, visitors to the community can submit their ideas and feedback to us at dreambigtiffin.com. Again, very simple, dreambigtiffin.com to submit those ideas. I would like to provide council with an update on the Tiffin Cares Small Business Relief Grant Program. I want to thank council once again for the passage of that program in early September. I have very good news to report. We already have 15 completed and approved applications from businesses, and a total of 45 applications that those 15 are included, but 45 total applications that are either completed or in progress right now. Now, in progress could mean a number of things. Businesses are able to go in and begin the process. It's a step-by-step process. So if they're working on it and they get a customer that interrupts them, or they realize there's a piece of information that they are missing that they need to submit, they can just save that. And it basically pauses the application so they can come back and pick up exactly where they left off, and they don't have to start over from square one. So right now, 45 either completed or in progress applications that are looking good from businesses, which is just wonderful because this program, as we know, we actually did some research and found out that our grant fund here is the largest that we have been able to find in the entire state of Ohio outside of a metropolitan area. So you got your larger cities like Cincinnati and Hamilton County, Columbus and Franklin County. We have not been able to find any in the state that rivals the amount of money that we are helping dish out to our local small businesses, non-franchise businesses here in Tiffin. This program is by far the biggest in the state of a rural community like Tiffin, Ohio. So kudos to you with City Council for supporting this program and really, literally putting our money where we're speaking and telling businesses that we need you. And we're here to help with funding to get you through this downturn in the economy and this pandemic. So thank you to City Council. It sounds like we're going to have absolutely no troubles handling out that CARES Act funding. Switching gears, the sewer rate study is nearly completed. Myself and the rest of the team will be meeting with Rathtellis tomorrow afternoon to finalize the details. They will be proposing that to you all at the committee of the whole meeting on Monday, October the 19th. So far, the talks have gone very well. Rathtellis is 99.9% of the way complete. I don't want to spoil things, but as it sounds, I think council is going to be very pleased with the information that they hear from Rathtellis at that next meeting. We're cautiously optimistic that we may actually, this is kind of goofy sounding, we may actually be able to lower the annual increase that occurs every year on every one sewer bill. So every year sewer bills automatically go up by 5%. That helps cover the EPA mandates that were required for the $100+ million sewer separation project here in the city and the upgrades to the treatment plant that are required by the Environmental Protection Agency. We're cautiously optimistic that when we come to all of you on the 19th, we may actually be able to lower that 5% figure to help out residents and businesses here in the community. But we'll have very good discussion on Monday the 19th. Couple of project updates. Street paving throughout the community will be completed by the end of this week. We had one of the largest street paving budgets ever in the city's history this past summer. It really shows driving around the community. The striping is also nearly completed on those newly paved streets. Jefferson Street, the streetscape is ahead of schedule. The street should be completely reopened to traffic by the end of the day, Wednesday this week, and the rest of the streetscape will be finished up soon after. The only item that may be delayed are the decorative lampposts, which always come in at the very end because there's never an inventory of those. They're always basically ordered to suit. So the lampposts still should be placed before the end of this year on the Jefferson Street project. The Ellis Street River Bridge, all of the geotechnical work has been completed. as well as the phase 1 for the project. So all systems go and point to a construction start in 2022. However, construction will not wrap up until sometime in 2023 because of the expanse, size, and scope of the Ellis Street River Bridge project. In the second ward, Nature Trails Park is nearly ready to go, so we'll have no problems, Councilman Jones, having that project off the ground in early spring of next year. I am told that all of the environmental work is really about the only thing outstanding out there. And once the environmental is done, it will be good to go. They've got the design ready. So construction will be underway next spring and finish up in the summer for the overhaul of Nature Trails Park in the second ward. And then Public Works has recently wrapped up their crack sealing project in the community. That was something we began to implement a few years ago. So as recently as just a couple of years ago, we never used to go around and crack seal city streets. We began that program to go through and follow up on newly paved roads so that it can extend their useful life. Since the voters approved the road and bridge levy funds, this created extra dollars to be able to implement a crack sealing project. To date, we have used over 11,000 pounds of crack sealer on the city streets. So kudos to Brandon Berner, who was on the call earlier, and his staff for their very diligent work on getting those cracks sealed to allow our streets to last as long as possible. A couple of items to remind council and the public about. The next charter review commission for the city is Tuesday, October 13th. So a week from tomorrow at 6 p.m. Council members and members of the public, the meeting is open to all of you. We would love to have attendance from anyone as we continue to go through the city's charter. Once every 10 years, the community's charter is updated, and this happens to be that year for it to be updated. And last but not least, just a reminder, trick or treat in the community is Sunday, October the 25th from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. Here in the Tiffin community. So other than that, Mr. President, the only other item that I have would be a reminder that we have a brief executive session at the end of the meeting. I'd like to ask for council to go in that at the very end of the meeting. That is for the purpose to discuss union negotiations. Should be very short. And then the only other thing, Mr. President, would be is if you would like to have the continuation of the DORA discussion now, or if you would prefer to wait. But as I mentioned in committee of the whole, the application is 99% done. It is ready for submittal to City Council at the next meeting on the 19th. So barring any major changes, we have to get that done if we want DORA to continue uninterrupted. If it is not introduced at the next meeting, there will be a break in DORA where business owners will kind of be up in the air wondering if it's continuing, how it's continuing, what rules are changing. So I would like to have things done and ready to go. As I mentioned, we're confident we'll be able to have the DORA application into council well ahead of the meeting on the 19th. The only thing that would throw that into flux is if there are significant changes that City Council wishes to implement. If there are, it will involve a lot of man hours to go back and make, for example, significant changes to the map or all new signs, et cetera, that would have to be placed. So Mr. President, I don't know if you'd entertain the discussion now or you'd rather wait, but I would like to have that before the end of the meeting and we forget to adjourn.
Well, I think now is a good time to do that, Mayor. We got interrupted because of time in the committee of the whole meeting. So does anyone have any additional comments on the DORA that they want to bring up at this time? Everybody hear me? Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I keep waiting for my fellow other 6 council members to chime in, so that's why I wait 5 seconds before I raise my hand. Little background from my perspective. And again, people in the second ward have not communicated with me their wishes on DORA. This starts back in 2019. I sat in the stands listening to DORA. We expanded it in 2020. Now we're talking about expanding it a little bit more in 2020. I feel terrible. Back on our meeting on May the 11th, 2020, I said, why isn't the pedal car company in the thing? And I think Mayor Mon said, well, we can add that to it. Since that time, since we're on that subject, and again, I brought it up and now I'm having second thoughts. And the reason I'm having second thoughts is I'm listening to the experts. And we all saw it, Carla Van Azel from CARSA. She was talking about suggesting less hours in the DORA program. She was talking about reducing the area, specifically Calvert High School and Little Hedges, which is the reason I guess I suggested, and now I'm not suggesting that we include whatever it is, 145, 147. She was talking about number 3, education needs certification, and about something like that. 4, she talked about TIPS program. They can provide the TIPS program. So that's a little bit of background. Now we move on to, and I communicate with Mayor Mons. I think we need to put a hold on our expansion of DORA. If we go in and piece out Market 22, and if we go in and piece out Red Raven, I don't know what's going to prevent someone such as in the second ward, and I repeat myself, I know I said this committee whole, I want the public to hear my views. What does it keep McGowan's Tavern from calling me and say, Councilman Jones, you represent McGowan's, correct? Can we get in the DORA program? I will push for it. I will fight for it. I'm thinking someone on the downtown business committee is going to say, oh no, that's not part of downtown. That's not part of downtown. I said it before, I'll say it again. Back in the 60s, 70s, my vision of downtown was Washington Street to St. Joe's. It was not Ralph's. It was not Viaduct Bar. It was not Fort Ball Pizza. If we're going to expand the downtown area, I don't know, and I'll fight for McGowan's if they want to get in here. And then we move on to second ward, someone from the Three Oaks on Second Avenue, Councilman Jones, can we get in? I'll put your name in. Double Barrel out there, I don't know, it's on Warren or Shawn Avenue, can we get in there? The Moose out there on 53 North, all those around the Second Avenue. And then I can go on and waste everyone's time. The Wall Street Cafe could say, let's get in it. Coco's Bar, let's get in it. We're all close to the new downtown thing. Pioneer Mill says, well, hell, or excuse me, they didn't say that. Pioneer Mill could say, we're part of the downtown area. VFW on Nelson Street, well, put us in, and I can go on and on. So my point is, I do not think we should expand the DORA program by adding Market 22 and Red Raven. I do not think we should expand it by including 145, 147, and Little Hedges Park. I have changed my opinion on that. So I'll throw that out for discussion among my other 6 council members.
Okay, Councilman Shuff, you had your hand up first. You're on mute.
My apologies. Thank you, Council President. Yeah, just to address some points here that Councilman Jones had brought up. I understand where he's coming from as far as everybody wanting to be included and excluding people, but DORA was never meant to be citywide. It was meant to be in a commercial district, commercial parts of town and things that were zoned that way. I think we'll be getting into mess if we're sitting there trying to add every single neighborhood bar into that. So I'm comfortable with the additions that the mayor proposed and the various committees. We got to kind of draw the line somewhere. I don't think we're going to be able to add the whole town as a giant door, nor do people want that. But it wasn't meant to ever be for residential restaurants or bars, but to stay in commercial districts, from my understanding, or historical parts of downtown.
Councilwoman Boyle.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with a lot of what Tyler said, but additionally, I think a lot of it is just assessing the risk that's associated with adding certain businesses in certain locations. I think, and part of the letter that Councilman Jones is referencing is they had concerns about Calvert being too close, or that Tiffin Columbian had open lunch, and possibly issues happening there. And I mean, we haven't had any issues. If you ask the chief of police, we haven't had any issues. So I don't see how I think we're getting ahead of ourselves in that area, I guess. Just additionally, I don't see how people are, that's highly trafficked time of day that people are utilizing the DORA, is when Columbian High School has an open lunch, you know, on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't really think that people are really utilizing the door during those times, but that's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know we had this long conversation about the reason why we opened it up was to give the bars and restaurants more seating outside, and that's the purpose of the door. So when Councilman Jones brings up about Market 22, it does kind of concern me a little bit. Really wasn't looking at it that way the other day. Why are we expanding it out when it's not a restaurant or a bar? And I'm not particularly crazy about, and I did bring this up last time, but didn't push the issue, but I'm not particularly crazy about being right across the street from Calvert. I've not heard from anybody from Calvert, so maybe they don't have a problem with it. But I do see it as getting out of hand. Councilman Jones brings up, you know, McGowan's and stuff. Reason why it went down to Fort Ball is because Fort Ball is a restaurant. And so I can justify those kinds of things. But I'm wondering why we're expanding it to Market 22 when there's nothing else there. So we're getting kind of a large area, and so I can see his point, and so kind of want to hear what everybody else has to say about it.
Councilman Leopard.
Where do we stand on the TIPS program?
Mayor?
Yes, based off of the information that we have, we feel that it would be overly burdensome to make it a requirement for every employee to have the TIPS training.
Well, how about every employee that serves customers? Somebody that sweeps the floor, I don't see a need to be a part of the TIPS program or as a back bar employee, but the ones that serve, I think it's very important. Didn't we originally have two parking lots involved? One on Madison, the large one on Madison Street, plus the one across from Kears?
Yes, Councilman Leopard, and we agreed that we are not going to include either of those now.
Either of them? Okay, because earlier I thought it was just one that we were going to eliminate.
Yeah, no, we're going to go ahead and leave both 4 and 6 out. There are no liquor establishments close enough to make them worth the extension of. It was just going to be a rundown Market Street to get to 22 Market if we're in agreement to include it.
The one thing I didn't like was for the city to say, yes, it's okay to carry a drink to your car in a parking lot. I just didn't think that was proper.
Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess what I'd like to just kind of throw out there for discussion, our purposes, was I went back and reread Amy's letter that she wrote, you know, there wasn't really a whole lot of explanation as to why we were going to include 22 Market and Red Raven. You know, my assumption would be that we'd be able to have folks, you know, take their door a little bit further to a couple of retail establishments. And, you know, that's understandable, but I suppose I just want to throw that out there. You know, what will we accomplish in adding those two? What will the benefit be?
Mayor, do you have any comment on that?
I guess, I mean, Amy was the one that sent the request over. My understanding was that the business owners requested it because they thought it would help increase foot traffic into their business. That was my understanding of it. So I agreed to go ahead and present it to council to get feedback from council, knowing that at the end of the day, there's no way we're going to have Dora get sunk just on an extension either. So council is going to have to make the decision whether or not they're willing to include 22 Market, but the 2 parking lots are just not going to happen. The parking lots were thought of for events, but we do have a couple of parking lots already in the Dora. So we might as well just stick to events on those couple of parking lots and not expand outwards. to future events. We can always, if a new festival or something begins, we can always look to include those parking lots at a later time. But Councilman Gillig, I'm just going to make the assumption. One, I know the business owners requested it. And two, the increased foot traffic that they had hoped to see from DORA patrons that like to get their cups, and it takes you however long to consume that beer that you may have or glass of wine. And while you're doing that, you want to do a little shopping along the way. So that was my understanding as to why it was asked.
Councilman Perry.
I just guess I don't understand why people would object to including these businesses. I mean, if the owners feel like it would improve business to or foot traffic to their business, I mean, what are they going to do in that one block area that's not included in DORA? I mean, one, they got to go by the police station, and two, I mean, I think we owe it to these downtown businesses to include them as well. I mean, they're still a downtown business, even if they're even if they're not on Washington Street. And as far as like including the party bike, I personally wouldn't care either way. I've yet to have a person even leave the party bike with a DORA cup. So, but for 145, 147, depending what goes in there, I mean, I know Cassandra at Roseleaf Flower. I mean, if it could improve her business, that somebody grabs a drink and is browsing and can go there, I mean, I think we owe it to them as well. Again, I would like to get some input from Calvert. I mean, if Calvert doesn't want it, I would rethink it as well. So I guess that's what and again, with as far as everything else, I just don't want to solve problems that aren't problems, I guess. So I mean, if we've been doing it for 6 months now, what issues have come from the last 6 months that we can fix? And I haven't seen a whole heck of a lot. So as this continues, I say, I would like to go with it as proposed. And then if things happen, then, we come back like we are now and solve them. So that would be my input.
Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I did want to clarify because I didn't get a chance to. I know Councilman Jones was concerned about continuing to expand this and expand this and expand this. We are limited by law to the size that the DORA can be. So it's not like that there's this constant continued expansion of DORA, because once we hit the maximum amount of size based off of acreage permitted within the DORA, and it has to be contiguous also, it cannot continue to expand. So we need to keep in mind that that an expansion out to Three Oaks or Double Barrel, that just couldn't happen because it would create too large of a DORA area in the first place for the existence. So I think the thing is right now for the creation of the DORA is because it is a designated outdoor refreshment area. It's a specific district that is contiguous and makes sense in someone's head to walk with a cup from, I can see where walking with a cup and a drink of alcohol from the Viaduct to the Ritz Theater or to the downtown farmers market from the Viaduct or from Fort Ball makes sense. I don't think you're going to see many folks at all, or any at all, saying that they would like to make the stroll from Double Barrel Bar or Three Oaks that far away, all the way to the Ritz Theater or to the farmers market downtown, or to the Heritage Festival downtown. That's just not a reasonable, feasible walk and part of what could be considered the district. And actually with the city's downtown plan that City Council has approved both of and participated in, that area and even Frost Parkway really is included in part of downtown Tiffin and is part of that plan. So yeah, we decided Frost Parkway should not be in DORA because of the overly residential part of, or the area is almost entirely residential. However, the area between downtown Tiffin and connecting right into where the Viaduct is commercial, very few residences in between, and really is part of considered greater downtown Tiffin, even based off of the downtown plan that council's participated in and approved both of.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to have to back into these. 4 people commented. I have a comment back to them and then one of my own. Let's start with Mayor Monses. I had that down as number 5. My understanding is Dora is 48 acres. And we talk about McGowan's just for the sake of discussion. I can't do the math, but somebody smarter than I can do the math. They can go from Fort Ball Pizza, walk down one side past Engleship Funeral Home or whatever it is, just on one side of the thing, and it's 6 feet wide and it's a half mile. That's 0.2 acres. Circle McGowan's, come back the same 0.2 acres, 0.2 acres, and just keep expanding it to fill up the whole 48 acres. That's my response to Mayor Montz on not being able to expand it out there. Item 4 was, I think it was Councilman Perry's comment. He said, what's the big deal about letting people take drinks into Market 22 and a few others? I can call on Law Director Howard. In 2019, when I was sitting in the stands, it was very clear to me in 2019, when City Council talked about Dora, no one was allowed to take a drink into a non-liquor establishment, period. Mayor Howard can correct me if I'm wrong on that statement. Let's go to item 3, backing into it. Councilman Gillig said something about Red Raven, and what was his comment? Dang it, I had an answer for that, and I might come back to that one. Councilman Leopard, number 2, he mentioned about the TIPS program. Oh, I know it, and I'll get back to Councilman Gillig. Let's go back to that one. Councilman Gillig said, why include that? I thought the same thing. I said to myself, and my family doesn't like me to say, I said, self, why don't I go down to Market 22? Why don't I go to Red Raven and ask the owners why they want to be included? It had been very clear to me, I do not represent City Council. If I did that, someone would construe it that I was representing City Council. It's clear to me, I do not represent City Council. President Fote does. Therefore, I did not go to Market 22, did not go to Red Raven. I really wanted to do that and get some insight. That was Councilman Gillig's, my response to him. Councilman Leopard talked about where we had on the TIPS program. I took it upon myself, not representing City Council, representing Ken Jones and the 2nd Ward. I spoke with Carla Van Odstel, asked her about TIPS program. She said they put it on an annual basis. I did not ask her, can you put it on for our downtown businesses? I neglected to ask her, is it a 2-hour thing? Is it a video thing? So I think CARSA can do the TIPS program if we wanted to. And I did tell her it was my understanding that I suggested we make this a recommendation and not a requirement for the TIPS. I would like to see TIPS get included from day one. And those were 4 things, 4. And then on personal note, my 4 children, I know back in the 80s or 90s, whatever the heck it was, my 4 children went to Calvert High School. If I would have thought somebody was going to be standing 15, I don't know how wide Madison Street is, let's say 30 feet. If I would have thought my 4 children went to Calvert High School and people were standing over there having a drink, and I know they're adults and they would be acting, I think I would have frowned on that with a capital F. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Based on all that, I will be a no vote on Market 22, no vote on Red Raven, no vote on 145, 147 across from Calvert and Little Hedges Park. And what was the other one? And eliminating the splash pad. That's a reduction in the Dora, not an expansion. I'm for the taking out the splash pad. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'll stand down.
Law Director.
Yes, thank you. A couple of legal questions that have come up in the comments with the mayor and Councilman Jones. The first is the acreage is 150 contiguous acres. So that's what is required. I know there's been some discussion about at the state law to amend the statute to provide a little more leniency for DORAs. And I know I read something the last couple of weeks, but I can't recall whether it's actually been approved. And maybe others, Mayor and others, if you've seen something, you can join in. But the law, unless it's been changed very recently, is 150 contiguous acres. The other point that I wanted to speak on is the issue of whether you can take a DORA drink in the DORA district into a non-permit establishment. And when the law first came out, there were some questions and various interpretations of the law, because what it does is the statute allows an exception to the open container law. That's really the purpose, because as we know, normally when you're out on a public street, you're not allowed to have an open container. What this law does, it creates that exception as long as all of the other requirements are being met. And so many people were looking at this and saying that the proper interpretation is that it doesn't then authorize someone to go into a non-liquor permit establishment with a drink. In fact, it has language that says it does not authorize. But what's important about the statute and how it's been interpreted throughout the state, and I know it's been several months ago, but at least 14 other cities have, and law directors have interpreted this over the last year or two, that what it doesn't do is it doesn't prohibit a non-permit establishment to allow a liquor or a DORA drink to go inside their business. And I think that's the correct interpretation as this law has been in action and has been developed by communities. It does not, if you go through, it does not specifically prohibit any non-permit establishment to allow for drinks into their establishment. And I have rendered an opinion to that effect to the police chief, and that's how it's been interpreted in our community. And I know it's been interpreted that way in at least 14 other communities around the state. Even some public safety departments around the state who enforce the liquor control laws, they have interpreted that way too. So Councilman Jones, I guess I would chalk that up to an evolution of interpreting and the development of the DORA statute. And so that's why you see the DORA decals for businesses that either allow or don't allow DORA drinks into their premises.
Thanks, Law Director. Councilwoman Boyle.
Yeah, just a quick comment in response to, or question, I guess, in response to Councilman Jones' comment about people having the DORA drinks close to Calvert or across the street from Calvert. I mean, am I correct in saying that the law for public intoxication, it still applies, correct? Yeah, so I guess in my opinion, it's not dangerous for somebody to have an alcoholic drink across the street from Calvert, but because the other mitigators and laws that we have in place still apply, it's just the open container. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there.
Councilman Perry.
Yeah, Councilman Jones, I'd be the first to kind of recommend that we look at this again if that were to be an issue. If people were standing across the street from Calvert and just drinking there during the day just because they can, I obviously I think that would be an issue as well. It's the same thing, you know, kind of some people were fear mongering a little bit when we were starting this thing, saying people are going to be thrown up in the street and, you know, they're going to be passing kids on the, you know, while Columbian has their open lunches. And I work right in the middle of where Columbian goes and gets all their lunches, and I have yet to see it, you know. It's just not, you know, it's just the way that, I think people wanted to, if they were against it, to kind of scare people away from it. So I just, if these issues come up, I'm more than happy, more than willing to sit down and address them. But I just don't see it coming up like that.
You know, concerning the tips, my recollection from our last discussion was that we we were not going to require the tips training, but we were going to recommend it. You know, the other thing that you have is that all the liquor establishments, they have liability issues if they allow somebody to walk out, you know, that's intoxicated. So I think that there's things that they have to be responsible for, whether they have, you know, the tips mandate or not. So, Councilman Shuff.
Yeah, I had a question for Councilman Perry. Dan, with your business being down there by Calvert, are you running that many rides at 12 in the afternoon or at 3 after school? I mean, to my understanding, you're primarily the evening hours, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I very rarely do anything during the day, and if I do, it's usually for the schools. So, yeah, very rarely do I have like especially rowdy rides like that. At one point, to kind of add on, just for, you know, I was down there for the vintage market, which was awesome, by the way. And I saw a dad come by with his kids, and he had a Dora cup. And that was cool to see him enjoy the market like that. It was a great area, great idea there for it. And obviously, you know, he wasn't getting out of control or anything, just, you know, enjoying a Sunday afternoon. So sorry for the long answer there, Chef.
Thank you, Councilman Perry.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I said I would stand down, but I have to respond to Councilman Shuff, Councilman Perry. When I said I did not want to see people with an alcoholic beverages standing 30 feet from the front door of Calvert High School, I did not target that as 10 or 12 people on the Tiffin pedal car. I meant if we include 145, 147, I didn't go down, look at those addresses, and part of Little Hedges Park, people could just meander around there with a drink in their hand. I would not want my 4 children going through that for 4 years, 9 through 12 at Calvert High School. So I was not pinpointing Tiffin pedal car specific.
Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may suggest, I know we're not under public dialogue just yet, but we are joined by Jean Chintala and Charla Van Osdal, who sent the letter the other day for Dora. Now might be a beneficial time to bring them in and maybe get some of their perspectives, if possible.
Sure, Mayor, can you pull up Carla? And are they there?
Yes, both have their hand raised, and also Stephanie Smith as well.
Okay, we'll start with Carla. Shar?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Awesome. No, awesome. Thank you. Well, first of all, I just want to thanks President Foe for opening me up and allowing me to speak. And happy birthday, Mayor Montz. You shared your birthday with my husband, who's been very patient this evening while I've been on this call. So happy birthday. And to all of the other council members, you know, I really appreciate the vigorous conversation we're having tonight. It's been really interesting to get and hear the different perspectives on your thoughts on the Dora. I know it wasn't scheduled to be discussed, but we wanted to just share a little bit about our thoughts and the work that we've been doing with CARSA over the past few months in relationship to when you are going to redo the application. So I've been the coordinator of the Community Action for Reducing Substance Abuse for about 10 years. And our mission is the reduction of substance abuse among youth and adults in Seneca County, and CARSA will achieve this mission through the provision of education, programming, and resources. And so some thoughts that we have, I know that I've heard you all discuss the issue with Calvert. That was one of our biggest concerns. And it's not that we think there's necessarily going to be a party out in front, but we really just questioned the purpose. What was, when it was initially put in to the Dora area, what was the initial purpose of having it extend to that area? My husband and I drove down there last weekend to just kind of check it out, and you know, it just begs to question. I could see it. I could see the Dora going up to Jefferson Street, but I just don't understand what the point would be to allow it to be that close to a park. Or a school for that matter. We were also looking at the hours of operation, and a reduction of those hours during the week would deter from issues that could arise. And I know that Bridget had brought up, Councilwoman Boyle had brought up the issue that there hasn't been any issues. And for a majority of the time that Dora has been up and running, we haven't really had school. I mean, there really hasn't been school. They just started just about a month ago, and Dora's been up for longer than that. So, you know, are we saying there's always going to be issues? We are not, but sometimes it's not necessarily an issue. But we sometimes have to also look at promoting safe and healthy practices in our community, especially in the vicinity of children. So, you know, if one of those businesses decides they wanted to have people sitting out front on tables and chairs, you know, while our young people are trying to gather and get their lunch, you know, I feel like that would be a concern. Not fear mongering. We're not trying to say the worst is going to happen. We are just pointing out these issues that that could arise from it. And then I want to talk a little bit about the increase in education and clarify the responsibilities of the Dora friendly non-alcohol establishments. And just like it's the responsibility of our permit holders, they have a liability. I would think there would be a liability for those businesses who are downtown. Now, we all understand that our communities, all of our communities, not just Tiffin, but a lot of local communities are dealing with COVID-19 and the impact that that's had on our businesses. And so, you know, we understand the desire or want to help encourage those businesses. And we would like to do that too. We also want to take a look at their liability. So if someone enters their business with a Dora cup, are they liable for that person who may be underage or intoxicated? Now, yes, they could call the police, but would they be asking for an identification of that person? Someone 20 and 21 looks very, you know, there's not always a lot of difference. We have 2 universities in our community. Could that situation arise? Could they be having someone in their establishment, on their premises, who is drinking underage? So where would their liability be with that? Will there be any education on what signs to look for if they suspect underage consumption or intoxication? Again, I know that many of the people who are going to use the Dora are going to use it responsibly. I know that was the intention of council and mayor for this. It's, you know, that's the intention, is that people will be responsible, but we also know that sometimes people are not. And so sometimes we maybe open up those doors for that. So it appears that the only responsibility of these businesses is to place a sticker on their window or their door. So we're just questioning, is there anything else that could take place to at least help safeguard those businesses in allowing persons to enter with alcohol in their hand? The other thing was I did want to address was providing education. CARSA has, for as many years as I've coordinated it, twice a year we hold alcohol server trainings. They are free. We have helped other community organizations who are holding events, like when the Jazz Festival, we used to assist with the volunteers and getting them trained. But we have been providing alcohol server trainings to our Seneca County permit holders twice a year for a number of years. They're usually about an hour long, and they are free to the alcohol permit holders. And we have always had a wonderful turnout. We have always been very happy. There have been times when we've had 60 to 65 permit holders at the Tiffin Seneca Public Library for one of our seller server trainings. However, I just want to say that many of the businesses downtown who are included in the DORA have not participated in those trainings. And I know that sometimes those are family-owned businesses, and oftentimes those people who are selling and serving have done it for a number of years, but then there's always that subset who might be those people that turnover is great. And so they might not be receiving that information or understand that information. So we would be more than happy to be a part of that. However, council decides that can look. We are looking to get that online to make it an easier process. So it would be something that they could do whenever, but we have offered those daytime and we have offered those in the evening. And so with that, I want to thank you for consideration on these matters and these concerns, and I look forward to working with council in any way that we can as CARSA to make this a safer, healthier DORA, I guess, for our community and citizens, and especially our youth. And with that, I am done.
Does anyone have any questions for Shara?
Oh, no.
Huh? No.
I said, oh, no.
Well, I have a question, Shar.
Okay.
How do you make, how do you notify the permit holders of your services?
Okay, so what we do is we work with the Ohio Investigative Unit. They have a listing of all the permit holders in the county. Actually, they have a listing. I have access to all of them. They send out an invitation. When we get it scheduled, they send out an invitation, and then the permit holders have the opportunity to register. Sometimes we have walk-ins, but a lot of times they register. That way we know how many to expect. And that's how it goes. And then we as CARSA are there as a support. We really do not provide the training. We facilitate the training. And then, it's our hope always that we can be partners with our businesses, especially our permit holders. And honestly, very proud of our Seneca County permit holders, because they have always, we have some that come every single time. We held 2 back-to-back last fall, and it was really interesting because both of them were filled. So we have a great history with the permit holders, and we would do anything we could to help facilitate giving them the opportunity to gain that information awareness. And it's a really good time for them to ask a lot of those questions and those situations that sometimes come up that can leave some of those servers or sellers wondering. And we also open it up. It's not just to bars, it's drive-throughs, carry-outs, the restaurants, it's the, could be the Kroger, could be it could be any business that has or sells or serves alcohol. So
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anyone else have a question for Shar? I believe Jean,
Yes, Mr. President, I'll bring in Jean. Let me get Shar back to panelist so she can listen.
Thank you.
And happy birthday to your husband, Shar.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Motz.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your feedback also. I'm just talking as I find the button to, oh wait, I'm at the wrong screen. That's why I can't send you back to panelists. Just a second. I'm still learning this technology myself, so.
Oh, no, we're all learning it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Charlotte.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, now I will bring in Jean. All right, so Jean Shintala, you are coming up right now. Jean is up. Jean, you'll have to unmute yourself if you called in. I believe it's *6 to unmute, or if you're on your screen, there should be a microphone button to push to unmute yourself. There you go.
There, thank you. We do appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today. As the chair of CARSA, one of the things we look at the bigger picture and also some of the details. And we did look at other communities that have DORAs, and we tried to look at several things. One of the things that we did look at was time. So I'd like to poll the city council and ask you, if you're going to have a drink, when would you have it during the day?
Councilman Jones.
It would be after 6 p.m. to answer your question.
Councilman Perry.
My answer is going to be anytime I want because I'm an adult.
Councilwoman Yanatuno.
I'm a bad one to ask. I don't drink, period.
Councilman Leopard.
I probably wouldn't have one either. Usually it's a 1 beer a year.
Well, one of the reasons why I asked that is when we looked at the times, the Tiffin Dora started much earlier than most, excluding Worthington and Chillicothe. And most were looking at afternoons and some starting in the evening. Weekends were a different story. And we go back to the proximity to our schools and what kind of impression is that making, not just to our students, but in the community where you have alcohol being consumed that close to a school. You have 2 high schools in proximity and an elementary school, which when you look at, that's a significant number of our students in town. So the times of day are important. And I go back to Councilwoman Boyle when she discussed not all the times being utilized, mainly in the beginning of the week. And a question would be, if they're not utilized, why do we have them? And why can't they be later in the day? As many communities have, starting noon or 4 o'clock, and even as late as 6. That would be up to city council to decide. So our question is to look at the impression we give to our school children and our students, and what our community looks like with a DORA so close to schools. And with that, I'll return it to Mayor Motz.
Does anyone have any questions for Jean? Councilwoman Boyle?
No, I can just address your question. So I guess what I meant by that is that's not when it's highly being utilized. I think to your point, on a Saturday evening or a Friday evening, it's probably more highly utilized. However, the intention, to my understanding of the lengthy time frame, was to allow the opportunity for businesses to sell alcohol during that time and to help assist their alcohol sales due to COVID-19 and the negative financial impact that our downtown businesses have had because of that. So to clarify my point, and I apologize that I wasn't more clear, but I meant that's not when it's most highly utilized, and therefore I don't feel that it would cause major issues during those times when Tiffin Columbian has the open lunch, as you guys stated in your letter.
Thank you.
Councilman Perry.
Just another comment. I know Port Clinton and Toledo both are 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Toledo actually goes from noon to 1 a.m. And that's what you've seen in a lot of these DORA districts. They've expanded hours instead of, taking them down. And there's a reason for that. I mean, it's helped the downtown, it's helped business. So, I mean, I think we should look at these other towns and kind of base it off of what they're doing and thank them for giving us all the data that we needed to get it going ourselves. So
The question I would add to that, Councilman Perry, is how many districts border schools? And that is one of our points. And that's the point that I bring up. Many of the districts, excluding Worthington and Chillicothe, begin in the afternoon. And I did go to Delaware, who has a door that begins Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at 11. And it's very controlled, and it's only within certain parts. But Tiffin's a little different in that you have so many students in proximity to Adora.
agree. Yeah. And again, like if we started having issues, I'd be the first one to bring it back up to council saying, let's look at this. These schools are being negatively affected. I know being a graduate of Calvert High School, every door and window that faces Madison Street, none of them are classrooms. There's 2 bathrooms and they can't have open lunch, so they have to stay inside all day. I'm just, I know Calvert inside and out. So went to school there, class of 2006. Again, I would just, if we have problems, I would want to come back together and talk about them on how to fix them. So.
Anyone else have a question for Gene? Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Chintala, would you mind sending the hours that you guys uncovered in your research for the other cities? I'm sure I have it in my notes somewhere when Amy Reinhart presented, but it would be nice to have those
Sure.
hours.
Yes.
Thank you.
And some have been updated based upon COVID changes.
Okay. Anything else for Gene? Okay. Gene, thank you for your time and thank you for your interest.
Okay, Mr. President, you have Stephanie Smith, it appears, next.
Okay, Stephanie?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to comment. I am a part of the recovery community in Tiffin, and I've lived here all my life. I'm the house manager for Lotus Recovery House, which is owned by the Mental Health and Recovery Services Board. And I also am a facilitator and committee member of Factor Support Group, which is at A Little Faith Ministries. I haven't made any comments thus far on the DORA because I have heard through the community that it could be really great for the community. But hearing some of the comments from the recovery community, I thought this would be a good time to bring up what they were saying. Tiffin is a very small community, but we have a very large population of people suffering with substance abuse, and then also a rapidly growing community of recovery. So with that in mind, in it being a small community, we only have a few places, agencies where we have recovery groups, and those are at the local churches downtown, which happen to be in the DORA district, Trinity, A Little Faith Ministries, and then now if you expand the DORA, First Presbyterian Church. During the week, we have many groups in the downtown area, Alcoholics Anonymous specifically, that start around noon. When you're in early recovery, you're mostly walking. And just thinking of Rigel recovery and then also Firelands recovery, and this is totally out there, but when I'm walking downtown at noon, when I'm walking or driving downtown at noon, I see a lot of my fellow people in early recovery walking downtown. So they're walking down Washington Street to go to Rigel, or walking Perry or Market to get to Firelands. And then also I see outside of a Little Faith Ministries and the other churches, the groups for the Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Also, with that being said, the Tiffin downtown area has grown so rapidly, and it's such a beautiful downtown, and I think everyone should be able to enjoy it. And so if you're an alcoholic in Tiffin, and we have a large community of them, an open container is a trigger. So having the DORA be during the operational hours for virtually most of the businesses is kind of isolating those people from enjoying those areas, because I know a lot of people, I mean, if I'm an alcoholic, I'm not going to go downtown during, just for fear of that. And I'm not debating DORA, because I think it could be a good thing. I just don't think that having it during all of the business hours is the best thing for Tiffin, just with keeping that community in mind. And then also I wanted to bring up that First Presbyterian Church by the police station has a Wednesday and Friday night meeting. And that is the largest meeting that we have in Tiffin for people in recovery. It brings every Wednesday and Friday night upwards of 45 people. So, and most of those people are walking to that meeting. So when I'm thinking about the DORA being expanded, for me, and a person being in recovery, it worries me for that aspect. I would hate to have, and I know I heard several people say, well, when the issue arises, we'll address it. But if we only base things on issues when they come to pass, so many things could happen. I would like to ask you guys to at least keep these things in consideration, and remember that we could come together and kind of meet in the middle to reduce the DORA hours so that everyone can enjoy Tiffin, and that the recovery community could feel that they are part of the community, and that everyone does care about their recovery as well. So thank you so much for letting me comment.
Thank you, Stephanie. Does anybody have any questions for Stephanie? Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I said I would stand down, but it's tough for me to stand down. But yes, Ms. Smith, you were talking about Presbyterian Church.
Yes.
In your professional opinion, would adding Market 22 and Red Raven Tattoo to the DORA program have any effect on the AA meetings at the Presbyterian Church?
Yes, I am very concerned. That's actually the most concerning thing to me right now, because, and I don't want to get emotional stating it, but we have a lot of early recovery there. And just having them around that area, I just, if it's not a restaurant establishment, just please don't expand it to that area, because whether an issue or not arises, people walking in and around that meeting with those open containers is going to be a trigger.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question? Councilman Jones.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to throw it in there sometime, and now's a good time. We just heard from 3 experts. I heard President Fote and someone else said trust the experts, trust the experts. I'm adhering to the other 6 council members. Listen to the experts.
Okay. Anyone else have a question for Stephanie? Stephanie, thank you for your comments and your interest and your passion.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, Mr. President, I am taking Stephanie out, and you've got 2 more hands up. I think they're both DORA topics. Next, you have Stephanie Little.
Okay. Stephanie? Hi, Stephanie.
Hi. Thank you for allowing me to speak a few minutes. I would like to speak about specifically a Little Faith Ministries. We are downtown and we currently house an after-school program for youth and also for the recovery community. We have addiction and recovery groups that meet at the church as well. And currently right now, the boundary for Dora is, it goes up to the alley behind the church. So right now, where the boundaries are, legally they can come behind the church and beside the church. So that was just a concern for me, that the boundary was behind the church instead of in front of the church, but also the hours. So I just wanted to come in and say that, you know, I'd like you to consider looking at the boundaries and also the hours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have a question for Stephanie? Okay. You said there was one more, Mayor? One more person?
More. Thank you, Stephanie. I'm going to take you out of here now. You'll still be able to listen.
Thank you.
And last up is Amy Reinhardt. And Amy is coming in now.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I just want to hit on a couple of topics and address some of the concerns that have come up this evening. First, I do want to say that the door has been an incredible benefit to our small downtown businesses. The comments that I get again from the downtown businesses are, I'm seeing double my income on a Saturday night. I am finally starting to recoup some of the loss that I would have normally had if my restaurant was full. You know, these are the comments. And again, I want to reiterate, they're still predicting that 40% of our small business is going to close as a result of the COVID shutdown and the reduction that we are still seeing. Sadly, the problem that we have is that, you know, everything seems to be open. Yeah, but it's not, at least not at full capacity. We really need to be very, very cautious of how we are assisting and helping our small business at this time, because they are still going through the partial shutdown. They are still seeing a reduction in income that they would normally be seeing. And I think that's a very, very important piece that we need to keep in mind here as we're moving forward. The reason why we went with the hours that we did was so that we could allow lunch and dinner crowds for our bars and restaurants. Again, trying to accommodate multiple meals, because again, when you're asking them to invest in the community, put some outdoor seating, start doing things like that. The only way you're going to get them to continue to invest is if they are seeing a return from us. There is some give and take that needs to happen here. Now, to address some of the hours, just some of the research that I have from other communities, Worthington is 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. Chillicothe is 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. daily. We have Springfield, 11 a.m. to midnight daily. Port Clinton, Liberty Center, Sylvania, Fairborn are all noon to midnight, which is exactly the hours we have, only bumped. We're 11 to 11, they're noon to midnight. Again, I think these are things to keep important. There's a number of communities, Hamilton, Canton, also noon to midnight. We are not out of traditional hours for these communities. A lot of the communities that have doors in place are doing a 12-hour span. That is not unusual. Some, like I said, are even more than that. Again, it's truly in an effort to assist our small business. That's just such an important piece here. Additionally, I want to address Calvert. So I actually got a call from Calvert about 2 weeks ago. They said they knew the door was down there and they wondered if they could get a trash can. I did not get any comments from them negatively saying we don't want the door here. They just said, hey, the door is here. Can we get a trash can? I actually spoke with a board member just a little while ago and said that Jeremy, who's the superintendent, did not have any objections. So I put that out there. The other thing I want to address is, I know that, you know, the question has come up about open lunches. The only open lunches we have is at Tiffin City Schools. But either way, if they were going to go into Clover Club and get a sandwich, they were going to be in the same situation. They were walking into a bar where they could get a meal. Somebody could have potentially had a beer in there while they were getting their sandwich. I don't think any of these are new issues. And again, I do want to reiterate that we have had no issues. The police department has been very clear. They have not had to address anything. We have not increased police patrol. We have had no reports. So again, I think all of that is very, very important. Now getting back to expanding, 22 Market. They are a small business in the downtown. Again, same as everybody else, they're struggling right now. But they do outdoor events in their small parking lot area that they have in front of their business. They want to be able, and it truly is about 100, 150 additional feet there along the sidewalk to allow them into the Dora district. They specifically asked if we would allow them in. They felt like they had been excluded purposefully from the Dora. They also said, you know, this is an opportunity for us to support additional small business if they're allowed to have a beverage in down to their business. So again, they're asking for support for their small events that they do for their business. They do have outdoor events they do in that area, including they just had their 1-year anniversary and they had a whole area outside where they did a record swap and stuff like that. So again, it is to help support them. The other thing I will say, I know there was discussion about the Presbyterian Church. If you actually look at the current map that we have for the Dora that is in place right now, it does include the sidewalk along Monroe and City Lot 6. It does not include that section of Market Street, but City Lot 6 and the sidewalk there along First Presbyterian Church is already included. I know they said they have concerns, but at this point, none of them have expressed that there weren't any sort of an issue. So again, I put that out there as just something to consider. Trying to think through all my notes here. You know, currently there are 39 Doras throughout the state of Ohio. That is significantly increased from when we first started looking at this, when there were only 11. And again, any of the communities I've spoken with, they're just not seeing issues. So I guess I'm here just to remind everyone that, you know, the real reason that we started this was to support our small business. We are bringing in permanent picnic tables for the downtown. We were able to get a grant so people can purchase their meal, their drink, and go sit with their family outside and enjoy a nice day. Again, some people are not comfortable sitting inside. They can be outside. This is another way to relieve some of the issues that we're still seeing with congestion. I think that's important. So, just trying to think if there's anything else I want to address. Concerns with the public intoxication. Again, each one of those businesses has their own logo on the cup. That was something that City Council and the police department wanted. That if there's someone out there that is intoxicated, and again, I just don't think any business would risk their liquor license by selling to someone visibly intoxicated, but that cup points directly back to the business that sold it. So again, I think there are some precautions in place to make sure that things are going smoothly. So I guess at this point, does anyone have questions for me?
Anyone have any questions for Amy? 22 Market Street, where do they have their events, Amy?
It is actually right in the front. They're an L-shaped building. So the Red Raven and 22 Market is an L-shaped building, and they have it's just a gravel area in front of their space where they held some of their record swaps and things outside.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Jones.
I said I'd stand down. It's tough for me. I will chime in on your question, President Fote. Where does 22 Market have their events? And you heard 2 of the 4 experts right beside the Presbyterian Church where 40 or 45 people go to meetings. That's where they have their event.
Anyone else have a question for Amy? Well, Amy, thank you for your time, and thank you for your comments.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm taking Amy out. I guess we're still under the mayor's report. So I guess since we're talking about Dora, we might as well call this. It's our it's last call, guys. This is our last chance that we're together publicly to where we're able to discuss Dora before the application is submitted. So we have to conduct our business in public. This is the last time we're together in public before the application, which legally cannot be changed, is submitted. So let's get to the point that it might not be everybody in agreement, but at least there's a majority in agreement with what's being presented. Because if we submit the application on the 19th and it fails, there will be a couple-month period where there is absolutely no DORA. And I think it's going to really scare our downtown business owners that have come to rely on it. Because I've heard the same thing that Amy did. I talked to downtown businesses a lot in the last few weeks, knowing DORA's coming back up. And I've heard the things that Amy said, that businesses are telling me they've increased their sales by 25%. I had another business owner tell me $500 to $600 a week average of additional revenue. That was a very small business. And other ones telling me 50% increase. So let's decide what at least a majority of this group can support, so that we're not in a situation where we have pulled the rug out from underneath all of our downtown business owners and a vote has failed. So with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Boyle, I think you had your hand up first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I'm not in favor of eliminating any businesses downtown, especially where it seems like, they have kind of the need for it. However, based on the feedback, that we heard tonight from many of the experts, I would ask that we remove 22 Market and the Red Raven from the upcoming DORA.
Okay, Councilman Leopard.
I don't know how we can have a last call when we don't know the decision of East Green property.
Mayor, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I understand that, but that board was not able to apparently get together until the 7th of October. And my plan, unless city council tells me otherwise, is to let that group that is owned by private individuals decide what will happen with their property. So if they say yes, if they say no, my plan, unless I am told otherwise, is that whatever the private property owners decide is what will happen with that site.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, President Fote. You don't have to ask me twice what's on my mind. To answer Mayor Montz's question, I like reducing the hours around the courthouse as they requested. I like eliminating the splash pad with the children, etc. I do not want to see Market 22 or Red Raven included, and I do not want to see 145, 147 Madison Street or Little Hedges Park included. So that's it.
Councilman Leopard.
Along with that, I'll also include tips. I would like to see that included.
Okay, is mandatory?
Yes.
Okay, Mayor.
Yeah, I guess Councilman Leopard, I understand the whole tips thing. I would like to see where the rest of council is. My personal belief is still to have it listed in the application and the ordinance as strongly recommended. I still don't like the required language, because if this course is only available once or maybe twice a year, getting new employees through it, I think it just creates a bit of a headache for the business owners to ensure that everyone is done. And then it creates burden for us to find out who the heck has followed it and who hasn't followed it. So my recommendation would be strongly recommended, but I guess I want to hear what everyone else says.
All right, any other thoughts on the tips? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
I was under the impression in our last conversation that yes, strongly recommended, but I also thought we kind of talked about management, at least making sure that they're aware of it. There's such a turnover with employees. I would think that would be a nightmare to make sure all employees know it. So I would be comfortable with it, strongly worded to do it, and at least somebody on site needs to have that training. And then to answer the other question, I have my concerns about some of this stuff, but I agree with Councilwoman Boyle. I will support it as it goes through. But listening to the stuff about the Presbyterian Church, that's just a slap in the face of those people trying to get help. I really don't want to put 22 Market in there either. So I would still go as we had said last time.
And that would include 145, 147 Hedges and
That's the
Hedges
part where
Park?
I have concerns, but I've been getting texts while I've been sitting here from Calvert people. I'm not getting the impression they're that concerned, and we can always pull it if it becomes a problem.
Okay. Mayor?
I agree with Councilwoman Boyle's proposal about 22 Market. The folks that own the place do a great job down there. It's nothing against their business, but hearing what we heard from Stephanie Smith this evening and some of the others about that support group right there, and especially it being the largest group of recovering alcoholics, and also the kind of I believe they're called early stage, where they're just getting into the program. Finding that out this evening and how frequently they're down there in that area, I think that's exactly why we should be happy that we're having this next round of discussion. I think it's great that we're here having this. I know we're already in this meeting longer than we almost always go for a council meeting, but I think it's great and healthy that we're having these talks to try to get to a good point. And out of this discussion tonight came that proposal. So I think that's a great idea. Something else I thought of, I'm fine if we can do it in a way without confusing the heck out of everybody. I'm okay also eliminating the rear of Little Faith Ministries downtown, knowing what goes on there. If that can be done in a way with that rear alley, I'm okay with that also. I agree, Dawn. I think the 145 Madison Street proposal is okay. I have not heard the negatives from Calvert. And we also heard the message this evening about that. So at the end of the day, I think this is all about getting to a point that not everybody gets everything they want, and hopefully no one's getting nothing. We're getting to a good point. We're able to come together and have these discussions. Unlike our counterparts in the federal government, we can actually sit here and have a great bipartisan discussion and get to a point that works for everybody in the community. If I ever stated that I wanted Little Hedges Park included, I apologize, because that was never my goal. So I don't know where that originated from. So if I ever said that in all these discussions, I apologize, because I never had any intention of including Little Hedges Park. It was only to go to the business there at the foot of Madison Street, 145 and 147. It was not to include Little Hedges Park. So I apologize right now if I ever did mention that.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would be the last person to put words in Carla Van Osdol's mouth, but I heard that from her, Little Hedges Park. You can check with her. That's where Little Hedges Park came from. Thank you.
Councilman Leopard.
We also heard that you can do the TIPS program online. It takes about an hour.
Okay, yeah, I have a question about that. Does it create? Do you think that it could create a burden on an unnecessary burden on businesses? What Councilwoman Yanatuno was also talking about is making sure that at least someone in the organization within the permit holder has that training, instead of requiring everybody who works in the establishment to have it. Would that be satisfactory? The other thing, Steve, I think that is thinking about this, I think it's probably in everybody's best interest to have their employees trained up so that they understand this. So whether it was required or not, it would seem to me it would make good business sense to do that. Is that enough of an incentive for people to go out and do it, I guess? Steve.
As a business owner, I would think 1 hour is, you can sacrifice that for the proper training.
No. Okay. Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. As always, we are just in unprecedented times right now. Amy alluded to the fact that there's still a very good possibility that 40% of our small businesses could very well be gone. I am fine with the hours as presented. I am fine with Red Raven and 22 Market being removed, although they're both fine establishments. I would still like to see tips as being strongly recommended. Kind of echo what you said, Mr. President. These are people we know, the Chris Chases and Sharon Goshis of the world. They are stewards of our downtown, and they're going to, I think, do what's best for their community and do what's best for their business. It just makes good business sense to ensure that their employees are properly trained in this. And we can certainly do our part. And it sounds like CARSA is absolutely doing their part as well, in just making sure they know, hey, here's a free resource for you that you can utilize to make your business even safer.
Okay. Do we need to attack these individually, or can we, let's attack them individually? The hours of operation, do I have somebody want to pass make a motion one way or the other to accept the hours as they are? Councilwoman Boyle.
Yes, I'll make a motion to accept the hours as they
All
are.
right, is there a second? Councilman Shuff.
Like to second, Mr. President.
All right, we have a motion and a second, keep the hours the way they are. Is there any discussion? All right, Councilman Jones. Any new discussion?
Yes. Yes, I have new discussion.
Okay,
It's on the hours. I have no problem with the hours as they're currently presented because there's been no problems to my knowledge to date, so I'm fine with the hours.
okay.
And that is new business.
Okay, thank you. Can we just do this by show of hands, Brent, or do we need to have a vote on it? Just do
You
it.
can do it. You can do it by a show of hands. That's no problem. And this is drawing consensus direction for the application and eventual ordinance, because everyone will have a chance to vote again, and they can arguably vote a different way. But obviously, the mayor needs some direction.
Right.
And you understand the process that once we get started, you can't change the application once it gets submitted. So that's why it's very important to provide clarity to the administration tonight.
Okay. All right, I want to see by a show of hands, those who support the
Hours as presented.
or what's that?
Hours as presented.
Yeah, the hours is presented. Thank you. I want to see by show of hands. All in favor? Okay. Councilwoman Boyle, Councilman Jones, Shuff, Perry, Yanatuno. Are you a no, Steve? Okay, so the vote is 6-1. All right, now to remove 22 Market Street and the Red Raven from the Dora. And also, do we want to throw in Little Hedges there? Little Hedges?
Yes, Mr. President, please do, because that was never the intention. If it was stated by anyone on my team, that was never the intention of Little Hedges being in there.
All right. So somebody make a motion to remove 22 Market, Red Raven, and Little Hedges. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll make a motion that we do not include Market 22 and Red Raven as new entries into the current DORA program.
All right, is there a second to that? Second, Councilman Leopard.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. Is there any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Councilman Perry, you're a no?
Yep.
Okay. So the vote is 6-1. And then the last thing is the TIPS program. do we want to make that strongly recommended or a requirement? I'll hear a motion. Councilman Shuff,
Yes, Council President, I'd like to make a motion that we keep the wording the same as we did in the original legislation and strongly advise it or strongly recommend.
okay. Is there a second to that? Councilman Gillig,
I'd like to second the motion, Mr. President.
thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'd like to see by a show of hands. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Okay. And Steve, you're a no?
Correct.
Okay. So the vote is 6-1. Thank you all. Is there anything else, Mayor, that we need to cover?
Yes, the only other item, which I know is, that Steve alluded to, is going to be the most difficult, is the East Green and National Corner site. As I said, my plan was to leave the decision on what is included on that site up to the private property owners. If council's okay with that, great. If council's not and they want to make the determination, then that needs to happen here this evening, because if I don't hear a determination from council, it's going to be left up to the private property owners.
Okay. Councilman Jones, you had your hand up first.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought there was 3 more items that we can show consensus on. One is to include 145, 147 Madison Street. And if city council will allow me, I'll be glad to go down and talk to the president of Calvert High School tomorrow and report back what I find. I also heard Mayor Mons suggest maybe eliminating the rear of Little Faith Ministries across from the old Lang. I think we can get a consensus on that. Item 3, I think we should get a consensus on eliminating the splash pad. Item 4, I think we should get a consensus on reducing the hours at the courthouse. Maybe I'm missing something, but those are 4 items I think we should consent.
Councilman Leopard.
When we talk National Corner, are we talking about splash pad and East Green, or should we consider splash pad separate from East Green?
So that again is up to council. So you have East Green, which is the amphitheater site, and then you have National Corner, which is the splash pad. So council could decide to allow the property owners to make the decision on the entire site, allow the property owners to make the decision on one of the 2 sites or whatever, but they're in theory 2 separate sites. My decision was going to be whatever the property owners decided for both of those sites. It's the same thing. The East Green Foundation overall operates the site. But again, so council can decide if they're together, separate, whatever, but that is a decision that is going to be needed, unfortunately, tonight before that board decides, unless the decision is just to let that board decide. Councilman Jones, thank you for reminding us about the other topics about 145 and 147 Madison. My plan was already to leave to go ahead and exclude the rear of Little Faith Ministries, unless for some reason there's just no way we could get it to work. My goal was to go ahead and just have that done. I thought that was enough consensus to go ahead and eliminate the rear of that. But if we want to go ahead and vote, that's fine. And the Justice Center site was already, the change was already included with those hours and everything, how we're running it now, and we worked it out with the county. So I really don't think you all need to vote on it unless you want to, because those changes were already done with. So to continue to run it at the new hours like we established now with the county. So unless this group really wants to do with the Justice Center and change anything, I don't think you need to take any action on the Justice Center or the rear of Little Faith Ministries. I think the only items you have are the splash pad and East Green and 145, 147 Madison, if I'm correct.
Okay, Councilman Perry.
I mean, the land adjacent to the courthouse, they wanted, some regulations and hours changed on that, and we accommodated that, and I get that. As far as the East Green and the splash pad, I couldn't agree more that I want it included if the property owners are okay with it. I've been to a splash pad down in Cincinnati where there were the Dora Cups and stuff like that, and it was such a cool atmosphere that, you know, I was able to responsibly drink my drink while my kids were playing and stuff like that. My other thing would be, if there is an issue there, that board is pretty good. They're pretty smart as well. So they could put up signs that say that it's not allowed on there. It's private property. So, you know, we also have the jurisdiction to make to include that land as well. So I think it would have to go through us and them if there's problems to, you know, we could fix them. So I would choose to include both. I mean, obviously, I would leave it up to the property owner. Would be my vote.
Okay, Councilwoman Boyle.
Yeah, I would actually disagree. I would like to see the splash pad excluded, but I think the East Green should be included.
Okay, Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we're getting away from what we're getting consensus on. Mayor Mons suggested not having the splash pad in the thing. I don't know why we can't get a consensus on that. And item 2, the elephant in the room is, why don't we get a consensus on 145 and 147? And we're just avoiding that. And I'll be glad to talk to Calvert High School and report back.
Councilman Schaaf.
Yeah, to Councilman Jones, I don't know if he missed it or not, but when Amy Reinhardt gave her report here just a little bit ago, she already spoke with some of the Calvert board members and their principal or superintendent. So they said, if you remember correctly, that they didn't seem to have a problem with it. But I guess what I was going to do is make a motion just off of what I feel here, just in the conversation in the room. I guess I would make a motion that we add the proposed 2 locations on Madison Street. We free up Little Faith Ministries from the back alley part and help Mrs. Little there as far as her request goes. We're all on this, I think we're all on the same page as far as the courthouse goes. And also as far as the splash pad goes, the East Green, I'd make a motion that we leave it up to the people that actually own the property. If they want it on there, fine. If they don't, that's their prerogative too. But I think the mayor needs some direction on that. I would leave it up to the individual property owner.
Councilwoman Yanatuno.
I agree. I think East Green and the splash pad need to be left up to Mr. Calnow, Mr. Klepper. After the gorgeous donation, if they don't want it included, I'm not going to argue with them. And so to me, it's good enough. If they say no, then it's a no. As private individuals are allowed to do that. And as far as this other stuff Tyler said, I do agree.
Okay. Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have an opportunity to just make a consensus on not having the splash pad in the current DORA program. That was one of Mayor Mons's 4 or 5 bullet points. I just cannot believe the 6 of you are going to consent to allowing the splash pad with children down there. So I say get a consensus on the splash pad.
Councilman Shaw.
I did make a motion. I don't know if we want to ask for a second or not, but as far as Councilman Jones goes, I mean, I think we're splitting hairs here. We've been on this topic for 2+ hours, it seems like. They purchased the property, they invested in the property, leave that up to their board. We don't need to dictate whether it's on there or not, leave it up to the property owner.
Okay, I'm gonna break this down into two separate votes here. The East Green and the splash pad. I want to keep that separate. So somebody make a motion. To exclude the however you want to, that we will go by the recommendation of the property owners on whether or not DORA is included. Councilwoman Yantuno.
I will make a motion that we will leave it up to the owners of East Green and the splash pad to decide if they want to allow their property to be a part of the DORA project.
All right. Second, Councilman Gillig.
I'd like to second the motion, Mr. President.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now, is there any discussion? Councilman Jones, you had your hand up?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Mayor Mons, didn't you get the okay from the East Green Foundation not to have the splash pad in the January 1st, 2021 DORA program? Is that correct or incorrect?
So based off of information that we originally had when DORA was discussed last year, they did not want the splash pad in DORA, and they were on the fence about the amphitheater. However, since then, we asked them if their opinions changed, and they said, we aren't sure, we would like to have a board meeting to discuss it and give you feedback. Unfortunately, the East Green Board is not able to meet until Wednesday of this week. And at that point, they're planning to give us a recommendation on whether they would like the amphitheater in and whether or not they would like the splash pad in. So I have a hard time sitting here saying that we should tell them what they should do with their $2 million private investment gift to the people of Tiffin. And that's why I want them to give us a recommendation.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Schuff, I know we spent a lot of time, but this is good communication, in my opinion. Maybe not yours, but it is mine. And get back to Mayor Motz, and I'm splitting hairs. I guess we can go back to the email you sent us city council people, said, think about this before we finalize it, and not having the splash pad was one of the 4 or 5 recommendations. I don't know why we're now allowing it back up to the foundation to make that decision when you had it in writing that we could not have it in there come January 1st, 2020, 2021.
Because it's their property.
Okay, is there anything else? Any other discussion? Okay, I'm going to see, we have a motion. We have a motion to allow the owners of the East Green and the splash pad to determine whether or not they want to be included in the DORA. And we have a second. I want to see a show of hands. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Okay. Councilman Jones, Councilman Leopard are no's.
Correct.
Okay, so the vote is 5-2. All right, the final issue is to include 145 Madison Street and 147 Madison Street in the DORA, and to eliminate the alley behind Little Faith Ministries. Is that correct? Is that correct, Mayor? Okay. Will somebody make a motion? Councilman Schuff.
Yeah, Council President, I'd like to make a motion that we add on the 2 parcels or the 2 addresses on Madison Street, and then also not, or that we exclude the back of Little Faith Ministries, the back portion of their property.
Okay. Is there a second? Councilman Gillig?
I'll second the motion, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. I know we're just taking a consensus right now, but even though it's a consensus, wouldn't we have to ask Councilman Perry to abstain from even consenting to have 145? Wouldn't that directly affect his business? That's a yes or no.
Councilman Perry?
My property is already included. They're going to include the 2 parcels that are beside me. I guess you could vote to exclude it from the next round, but yeah, it'd be up to you.
All right. Since we're just looking for, we're looking for a vote. Councilman Jones, what?
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilman Perry, what is the address of the Tiffin Pedal Company?
Technically, we don't have. So 145 is next to us. 147's next to that.
Okay, and maybe you can correct me then, or you can answer this, Councilman Perry or Mayor Motz. The current map of the DORA goes down Jefferson Street. It does not go down to Madison Street and include your no address location. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Currently by the signs, it includes it all. So I don't know if they just didn't put the signs in the right place or or what, but like we're talking for the next round. And I guess while I'm going, I guess the biggest frustrating thing to me in the last hour and a half is we're talking about a lot of hypotheticals and not of a lot of examples. If somebody wanted to reduce the hours or reduce the zone and they say, because this happened, I would be more inclined to agree and see why this conversation's gone so long. But I hate going on hypotheticals when we have so much data and that we can go throughout the state and in Tiffin now. So yeah, he healed back.
All right. Councilman Jones, anything new?
Well, I asked the 12 of you to answer a simple question. The current map on the DORA goes straight down Jefferson Street. I don't care what signs Councilman Perry's talking about. The current map, and if Amy Reinhardt's still there, she's an expert on the map. Somebody else can pull this map up. I'm not quick enough to do it. It goes down Jefferson Street. It does not go down Madison Street towards Heidelberg College. I'll state my position.
Okay.
Any of the 12 can answer. Is the DORA map go straight down Jefferson Street or not? Why can't someone answer that?
Mayor, do you know if it goes over that way?
I don't have a clue. I don't have the map in front of me. Councilman Jones is getting so far in the weeds. I don't think he can literally see the hand in front of his face right now, as far in the weeds as he's gotten with this. So, Mr. President, I can't tell you what to do, but please just call the vote.
We'll call the vote. All those in favor of the motion. And the motion is, we probably forgot by now to include 145 Madison, 147 Madison to eliminate the alley behind Little Faith Ministry. I see a show of hands. All those in favor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 yeses. Councilman Leopard, you're a no. Councilman Jones, you're a no. Okay. I think that settles it. At least for tonight. We can move on to something else. All right. Is there anything else, Mayor? Does that give you enough to work on?
Well, I got the backside of my note card now. No, I'm totally kidding. I'm done.
Okay.
Go
All
ahead,
right.
Mr. President.
Pardon me?
No, I said, go ahead, Mr. President. I'm
All
done.
right. We'll move on with reports to the officers. Clerk of Council Ann Forrest, you have a report.
You're lucky. No report tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you. Director of Finance, Kathy Kaufman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the financial report for the month of September. Total receipts for the month were $3,663,138.51. Total expenses were $2,796,032.47. The general fund's unencumbered balance is $3,161,703.19. Income tax receipts for September 2020 were $873,273.73. That is a decrease between September 2020 and September of 2019 of $71,852.57. Year to date, we are down about 2.2%. The 0.25% portion of income tax receipts that was transferred into Fund 215 for public streets for September is $107,490.77. The unexpended balance for all funds is $27,223,019.36, which is the same as the bank balances for the same time period. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for the Finance Director? Councilman Leopard.
Thank you. I hate to put you on the spot, Kathy, but do we have any kind of anticipated guesstimate on carryover going into next year?
That's going to be pretty tough to call right now because, as you heard the mayor speak a little bit earlier, we're starting out very, very slowly the month of October. So it's going to be really hard to gauge. But right now, we're sitting okay, but I can't possibly know how October, November, December are going to go.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Mr. President. For Mayor Monsa's benefit, I am not that upset that I can't be understanding about this DORA thing. But to answer, I had 4 questions for Finance Director, but since Councilman Schuff thinks we're spending too much time on, I'll keep those for another meeting. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments for the Finance Director? Councilman Gillig?
No questions or comments, Mr. President, but I would so move that we accept the Finance Director's report and bank reconciliation as presented this evening and also presented to us via email on Friday, October 2nd.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilman Leopard?
I'll second the motion, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to accept the Finance Director's report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. We're now under written communications. Clerk of Council, Ann Forrest.
Rich.
Rich,
Pardon me. Oh, how did I do that? I'm sorry.
that's okay. No problem. I'll be very.
I'm sorry, Brent.
That's okay. I'll be very brief. Just for the record, though, I want to make the point that the required joint hearing regarding the cooperative development agreements among the city of Tiffin, Eden Township, Clinton Township, Hopewell Township, and Seneca County was held on September 29th. There was no opposition, no concerns expressed regarding the extension of the 20-year agreements as proposed. And in fact, there were some positive comments made at the joint public hearing. No opposition, no comments from the general public. Second item, real quickly, in response to Tyler Schuff's question during Committee of the Whole, Amy Reinhardt texted me that there are 12 D5L, those are the revitalization district liquor permits available.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I apologize. Can't believe I forget you. Councilman Shaw.
Yeah, just 2 quick questions here for the law director. So hoping he could help me. As far as the city of Tiffin goes, I don't know if this is city to city or by state. What's the current curfew for underage kids that are out running around during the night?
Let me check the curfew. It's been a long time since I've looked at that.
Yeah, that has been a while. I'm thinking, while Brett looks, I'm thinking it may be midnight most of the days, except what would it be? Saturday morning, I think it might be 1 a.m. and Sunday morning, 1 a.m. to take in Friday and Saturday night. But I know Brent is looking for it, but it's been a while since I've had to look that one up too. But I think it's midnight with the exception of those 2 evenings. Then I think it turns to 1.
Is that determined by the municipalities or does the state have certain guidelines on that?
So that's a city ordinance. Oh, let's see. And Tyler, I know you have questions at different times, and I realize that it's good for the public to hear the questions and the answers. If you have these prior to the meetings, then I can give you sometimes I'll need to look up the answers, and then I could be prepared to give the response. So just in the future, that might be helpful too.
My apologies, law director. If you want to get back to me, I can bring it up the next meeting, but it was one of those things I didn't know if you could rattle it off or not. My apologies.
No, that's okay. It's been a long time since I've looked at this. Oh, here they are. It is Monday through Friday. It is 12 a.m. to 5:30. That a minor cannot be can be out by themselves. Saturday and Sunday, it's 1 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. Now, they can be accompanied, of course, by an adult. And this is under the age of 18 years old.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I know there's sometimes where I'll be closing up the building downtown at night or going through downtown. You'll see these kids out at ridiculously late hours. And I wasn't sure what the rules were technically.
Yeah, it's 12 at midnight until 5:30 a.m. Monday through Friday. And then it's 1 a.m. to 5:30 Saturday and Sunday.
Got it. Thank you, Law Director.
Okay,
Those
any
are
other questions?
Saturday morning. That's Saturday morning and Sunday morning. So, it's not Monday, it's those morning hours.
Clear as mud.
Yeah, is that clear as mud?
Very.
Kids stay home.
Okay.
I have another question for you, but I'll send it to you before the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving ahead, we're under written communications. Clerk of Council, Ann Forrest.
Okay, I have mayor's request for legislation number 20-41, additional perpetual easement. This is for facilities along Tiber Road and Shawn Avenue.
Mayor's request for legislation 20-41 will be turned over to the Street Sidewalk and Sewer Committee. Councilman Leopard. Yeah. Next one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he was, okay. I'm sorry. Mayor's request for legislation number 20-42, acquisition of property at 43 West Market Street.
Mayor's request for legislation 20-42 will be given to the Recreation and Public Property Committee. Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Mayor's request for legislation number 20-43, overhaul the City of Tiffin Public Works Design Manual.
Mayor's request for legislation 20-43 will be turned over to the Law and Community Planning Committee. Councilwoman Boyle.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F20-47 to amend the 2020 Budget Ordinance 19-84 to appropriate funds into the Parks Department budget.
Finance Director's request for legislation F20-47 will be held on file in the clerk's office. An ordinance 20-100 has been prepared for tonight's meeting.
Finance Director's request for legislation number 20-48 to amend the 2020 Budget Ordinance 19-84 to appropriate funds into the capital improvement budget.
Finance Director's request for legislation F20-48 will be held on file in the clerk's office. Ordinance 20-107 has been prepared for tonight's meeting.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F20-49 to amend the 2020 Budget Ordinance 19-84 to allow for the recording of the third disbursement of CARES Act coronavirus relief funds.
Finance Director's request for legislation F20-49 will be held on file in the clerk's office. Ordinance 20-108 has been prepared for tonight's meeting.
That concludes the written communications.
Thank you. We are now under oral communications. Anybody from the attending public wishing to speak to council can address their comments to the president of the council. Do we have anyone?
I see several out there. Is there anyone, if you would like to speak, please click the raise hand function. Mr. President, you'd be happy to know we actually, through all this lengthy meeting, we still have 29 people watching us this evening, not to include you all. I do not see any hands going up, so.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to motions. Do we have any motions? We'll move on to resolutions.
Resolution number 20-33, introduced by Daniel Perry. Resolution approving the appointment by the mayor of Vicki Wilkins to serve a term on the Planning Commission from the passage of this resolution until December 31st, 2023.
This is the first reading of Resolution 20-33. Councilman Perry,
Yeah, I'd like to ask for passage of resolution 20-33.
we have a motion for the passage of Resolution 20-33. Is there a second? Councilman Shaw.
Like to second, Mr. President.
We have a motion and a second to pass Resolution 20-33. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will call the vote, please.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Resolution 20-33 passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now move on to ordinances.
Ordinance number 20-95, introduced by Steve Leopard. Ordinance authorizing installment of a street light on South River Road and declaring an emergency.
This is the second reading of ordinance 20-95.
Ordinance number 20-96, introduced by Don Yanatuno. Ordinance amending chapter 163 and section 931.16C of Tiffin codified ordinances to update the city's laws related to the commission that assists the city and community regarding tree planting and beautification.
This is the second reading of ordinance 20-96.
Ordinance number 20-98, introduced by Don Yanatuno. Ordinance amending sections 935.03 and 935.99 of Tiffin codified ordinances prohibiting camping in city parks and establishing penalties.
This is the second reading of ordinance 20-98.
Ordinance number 20-99, introduced by Steve Leopard. Ordinance authorizing installment of a street light on Olive Street and declaring an emergency.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-99.
Ordinance number 20-100, introduced by Ben Gillig. Ordinance amending the 2020 budget ordinance 19-84 to appropriate a donation into the Parks Department budget.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-100. Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. We received a donation through the Tiffin Community Foundation via the Robert Bo Reed Athletic Memorial Fund, and they are going to be utilizing this money to make fence improvements in Highland Park. So that we may put that donation to good use ASAP, I would ask that we suspend our three reading rule and immediately pass ordinance 20-100.
We have a motion to suspend the three reading rule and pass ordinance 20-100. Is there a second? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
I'll second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilman Gillig.
I won't take any time, but if anybody knows Mr. Reed's story, I'd sure be interested. I've heard of the Bo Reed tournament and everything else. So feel free to call, text, email, whatever you like.
Okay. Right. Anything else? The clerk will call the vote on the suspension.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
The suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-100 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 20-101, introduced by Tyler Shuff. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute and deliver an agreement with Tiffin Seneca County regarding the development of sewers outside of the city of Tiffin in the townships of Clinton, Eden, and Hopewell, and declaring an emergency.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-101. Councilman Schaaf.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to ask for a suspension of council's three reading rule and passage of ordinance 20-101, please.
Thank you. We have a motion to suspend the three reading rule for ordinance 20-101 and immediate passage. Is there a second? Councilwoman Boyle.
Yes, I'll second that, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will call the vote on the suspension.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
yes,
Jones.
Yes.
The suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the emergency.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
yes,
Jones.
Yes.
The emergency passes with a vote of 7-0. We will now vote on the passage.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
yes,
Jones.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-101 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 20-102, introduced by Ty Shuff, ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute and deliver a second addendum to cooperative development agreement with the township of Clinton, Ohio and Seneca County, Ohio, concerning the annexation of land from the township to the city and the sharing of tax revenue from areas annexed and declaring an emergency.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-102. Councilman Shuff.
Yes, President Folt, I'd like to ask for council's suspension of the 3 reading rule and passage of ordinance 20-102, please.
Thank you. We have a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 20-102. Is there a second? Councilman Perry.
I'll second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will call the vote, please, on the suspension.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
yes,
Jones.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-102 is suspended with a vote of 7-0. We will now vote on the emergency.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
yes,
Jones.
Yes.
The emergency passes with a vote of 7-0. We will now vote on the passage.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
yes,
and Jones.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-102 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 20-103, introduced by Ty Shuff. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute and deliver a second addendum to cooperative development agreement with the township of Eden, Ohio and Seneca County concerning annexation of land from the township to the city and the sharing of tax revenue from areas annexed and declaring an emergency.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-103. Councilman Schaaf.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to ask for council suspension of the 3 reading rule and passage of ordinance 20-103.
Thank you. We have a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule and the immediate passage of ordinance 20-103. Is there a second? Councilman Gillig.
I'd like to second the motion, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will call the vote on the suspension, please.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry, Councilman Perry.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
yes,
Jones.
Yes.
The suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We will now vote on the emergency.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
yes,
and Jones.
Yes.
The emergency passes with a vote of 7-0. We will now vote on the passage.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
yes,
and Jones.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-103 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 20-104, introduced by Ty Shuff. Ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute and deliver a second addendum to cooperative development agreement with the Township of Hopewell, Ohio, and Seneca County. In Seneca County, Ohio, concerning annexation of land from the township to the city and the sharing of tax revenue from areas annexed and declaring an emergency.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-104. Councilman Schuff.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to ask for suspension of the 3 reading rule and the passage of ordinance 20-104.
We have a motion to suspend the 3 reading rule for ordinance 20-104 and the immediate passage. Is there a second? Councilman Leopard.
I'll second the motion, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will call the vote on the suspension, please.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Schuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno, Jones.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-104 is suspended with a vote of 7-0. We will now vote on the emergency.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Schuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno, Jones.
Yes.
The emergency passes with a vote of 7-0. We will now vote on the passage.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Schuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno, and Jones.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-104 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 20-105, introduced by Bridget Boyle. Ordinance creating the zoning classification R4A, multiple family residential agricultural district for the purpose of permitting agricultural uses with restrictions along with multiple family residential uses.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-105. Councilwoman Boyle.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that we table this ordinance until the required joint planning commission meeting takes place.
Thank you. We have a motion to table ordinance 20-105. Is there a second? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
A second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? The clerk will call the vote on the table. To table the motion or table the.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Schuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno, Jones.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-105 is tabled with a vote of 7-0.
And Mr. President, could you call the joint public hearing with the Planning Commission for your first meeting in November, which I think is November the 2nd at the start of your regular council meeting that evening?
I'd like to call a joint meeting between the Planning Commission and Tiffin City Council for the November 2nd meeting of Tiffin City Council at 7 o'clock.
It's regarding ordinance 20-105.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 20-106, introduced by Bridget Boyle, ordinance enacting chapter 723 of the Tiffin Codified Ordinances to authorize and regulate mobile food vendors operating within the city.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-106.
Ordinance number 20-107, introduced by Ben Gillig, ordinance amending the 2020 budget ordinance 19-84 to appropriate an $8,000 donation from the Tiffin Community Foundation into the capital improvements budget for the purchase and installation of 2 AEP charging stations.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-107. Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. So that we may put this donation to use immediately, I would like to ask for council suspension of our 3 reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 20-107.
We have a motion to suspend the three reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 20-107. Is there a second? Councilman Schuff.
I'll second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will call the vote on the suspension, please.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-107 is suspended with a vote of 7-0. We will now vote on the passage.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
and Jones.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-107 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 20-108, introduced by Ben Gillig. Ordinance amending the 2020 budget ordinance 19-84 to allow for the appropriation of the third disbursement of CARES Act coronavirus relief funds in the amount of $633,580.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-108. Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. For those hardy souls still with us at 10:06 p.m., this just simply actually puts the money into our budget so that we can utilize it for our Tiffin CARES Act. Therefore, I would like to ask for suspension of council's three reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 20-108.
Thank you. We have a motion to suspend the three reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 20-108. Is there a second? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
A second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will call the vote on the suspension, please.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
The suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We will now vote on the passage.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-108 passes with a vote of 7-0.
That concludes the ordinances, Mr.
That's
President.
it for the ordinances. Okay. I need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing
Labor negotiation.
labor negotiations. Thank you. Councilman Schuff.
I'd like to make a motion that council goes into executive session to discuss labor negotiations.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? Councilman Leopard.
I'll second the motion, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any discussion? Clerk will call the vote, please.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0. We are now in executive session. Everybody know what they're doing?
Remember, click Dale's link that Dale Thornton sent for executive session. And then we do have to adjourn in regular session. So remember, you got to hit the link to come back in here. Anyone who is not joining executive session, remember that you will still be on Facebook Live and broadcast for the public. So don't get into personal discussions or anything like that if you're not in executive session, because you will still be visible to the public. So,
You're the first one. You got the message.
Can I leave the meeting?
Yeah.
All right.
I left my computer on, so this is from my phone.
Am I leaving the meeting or is somebody taking me out?
Just minimize.
I'm sorry, do what, Councilman Schaaf? Mayor Mons, I still haven't left the meeting.
Yes, Ken, you'll have to actually click leave meeting. I can't boot you, or if I boot you, you can't get back in. So you.
Oh, it's on the lower right. Okay, leave.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. We'll see you in a minute. Pretty simple.
I'm here.
Welcome back. There we go. We got everybody joining.
So while we're waiting, how best to coordinating all four of us?
That's a good question, Dawn.
Because I know you're really busy right now.
Uh,
Let me call David and see if he can name some dates and go from there.
Sure. On my schedule, Dawn, it just so happens I've got a ton of meetings Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. However, my Friday is almost entirely open. So if David and Brent have time on Friday, I could make almost any time that you schedule on Friday between like 9 and 5 work.
In the morning is better for me. So Friday morning, if possible.
Okay. So there you go, Don. If David's available Friday morning, let's say anytime from 9 on, I'm good with that. And even if it had to be 9 or before, I just like to get a good pot or two of coffee in me before I start. So
Audrey said in chat that she's got David's schedule. So
she's still with us.
yeah, Audrey, tell us if Friday morning is a possible time, anytime between say 9 and noon. Okay, one moment, she said. Well, you reading this too. Sorry.
Brent, if you had the oh my gosh, if you had the Morgan Freeman voice, we would all be sitting here in awe just listening to you reading her simple statements. If you had the voice.
Sorry, I don't have that. I'm not God.
Close.
Councilman Gillig.
While we're waiting, apparently I forgot Google was a thing, and I did find out about Mr. Reed. Quite an interesting life.
He was quite a guy.
He was.
He was
Quite a guy.
He was a salesman at Ford for, gosh, what, 40 plus years probably?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ben, you may be able to reach out to the folks at Ford and find out a lot of information about him at Tiffin.
He's in the Heidelberg Hall of Fame too. I can reach out there as well.
Where's Steve at?
Well, we have some downtime. The Perry family is expected baby number 4. So.
Oh, wow.
Good.
Well, we know what you've been doing during the virus.
Baby. I don't know if I'm going to put that on a public meeting, but have that in the minutes, please.
Okay.
As we put in the minutes now, it's all over Facebook.
Yeah, advertising could be all over it.
Probably
Hey,
break
Brent.
right now. Yeah.
Oh, there he is. There's Steve.
Steve back.
Okay.
Well, Councilman Fote, we have 10 people still with us that are not the folks here on the screen. So we've got some real diehards out there.
Yes, it's awesome.
I don't sleep in front of the screen.
One being Bill Jones, Councilman Jones.
Audrey just said Friday is open for David. So Dawn, do you want to pick a time for us to pencil in now?
9 o'clock Friday's fine.
Perfect.
Are we doing Zoom or are we meeting somewhere?
Probably Zoom, unless you would prefer to meet in person.
No, if you guys know how to set up the Zoom, I'll be there.
Okay, then I will send out a Zoom invite to the 4 of us. Audrey, does anyone else from your office need included, do you know of, or should I just send it to David and he can tell us? And Dawn, this is just this is not a public meeting, right? This is just
No, just informational before I have my meeting.
Okay.
Have you taken attendance, Ann?
No, not yet. I'm waiting for. you
I
to
think we're
announce
all
it.
here.
Okay, we're all here. I'll do it. And then Dawn, are you going to announce your meeting or your pre-meeting or?
I don't think I need to, do I?
I don't think for that, no, for informational. Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, for roll call, Councilman Leopard.
Yeah.
Councilman Perry.
Here.
Councilman Schuff.
Here.
Councilwoman Boyle.
Here.
Councilman Gillig.
Here.
Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Here.
And Councilman Jones.
Present.
Okay. So Does anyone have anything else for the good of the order? Councilman Shuff.
Yeah, and a question. This is for the law director, and you can answer this next week, but I figure I'd at least bring it up. It's been on Facebook, it's been in the paper, and I think you see it on both sides of the aisle, that's for sure. But with people's political yard signs going missing, what are the legal repercussions to that? I mean, I know does it fall under trespassing or theft, or could you kind of enlighten me on that?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you it's theft. The value is probably a misdemeanor, but it is theft. I mean, I guess trespass if you find that somebody's on your property and they're not allowed, but maybe it depends on the factual circumstances. But the primary charge would be a theft charge. If you have any evidence regarding any stolen signs, contact law enforcement, the police, and let them investigate and work with the prosecutor's office to determine whether a charge should be brought.
Thank you, Law Director. Also, just wanted to check here with the city administrator. Where are we at on Councilman Hayes's stone and plaque? I mean, I know we kind of handed the ball off to the city, but did we get that rock picked up yet from Public Works for his memorial?
We have, the rock is at Public Works. We have the signage from Mr. Gillig in terms of what goes on the narrative. What we do not have is a picture that's can be used by Tim Welly. He has to have a JPG. He can't use a JPEG. He can't use something off of Facebook. He says those will not be able to be printed onto the plaque. So I'm waiting just for the picture from one of you that can be used by Tim Welly.
Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I spoke with Tim about a week ago, and he said we're very quickly approaching that time period where he will not be able to epoxy the plaque onto the rock, and it's probably going to be a 2021 dedication.
Is there anyone who has a picture of Councilman Hayes, President Hayes, that we can use for this, even if it does get delayed?
I can give you his daughter's number if that would help you, Dale.
It would, but I thought that we were trying to, or I thought it was going to be a surprise to the family. But Tim Meeker had called me to indicate that he was trying to work with all of you to make it as much of a surprise to the family as possible.
Councilman Perry.
I can reach out to Tom Hayes. I think making it a surprise would be pretty nice. But I think finding a picture that the family would be proud of and would love to see every time they go to the rock would be more important. So, I mean, if council's okay, I can reach out to Tom or Mary Kate and see what picture they'd want. Or if we want to try and keep it a surprise, I can try and get something else too.
I think they'll be honored that the city's doing this. I don't know why we have to keep it a secret.
Let them kind of pick the photo, but you could let the kids know, but maybe still make it a surprise for Mrs. Hayes. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's fine, as long as we can get a picture and we'll get it to Welly, and then we'll see what we can do with the rock and getting it onto the rock, the plaque onto the rock.
Well, since we're public, it's kind of out of the bag anyways.
JT's no longer on the call.
Oh, duh. There's 10 people out there that know about it now.
So all of Tiffin will know by tomorrow.
And my baby.
Yeah. I also want to remind everybody, we each owe the city administrator $25.
Not all of you, not all of you.
Not all of us?
No.
Oh, some have paid?
Yes.
Okay.
And it wasn't 25 either. I think it was less.
Oh, I thought make sure you got compensated. $20?
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
I'll let your
$20?
conscience be your guide.
Okay. Well, I'm feeling good about things, I'll tell you. All right. Is there anything else? Anything else for the good of the order? Councilman Shuff.
Sorry, one last thing. Just wanted to bring this up to council, maybe have you guys sleep on this or just get your thoughts or opinions. Not sure what the next couple months will hold here. I'm in the middle of an election. I'm running it against a write-in. I think we'll be okay, but don't want to jinx myself. But I was hoping that maybe for like the last meeting of the year or something like that, I'd really like to have it back in the council chambers if COVID numbers are down or if we feel it fit. But I would really, really hate to have my last meeting be on Zoom. It'd mean a lot to be in person with you guys one last time.
I thought you were going to tell us to have a meeting out at your cabin on the river.
We could do that too.
Okay. Anything else, Mayor?
I think that's something to think about, but we can't make exceptions just for someone who's an outgoing council person. I think it would set a bad precedent if we go back to have one meeting like that in person and then all of a sudden decides to start having them again in private. It just lends so many different questions to why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? If we're going to go back to meeting, we need to start going back to having them all in person and not just that one meeting. Because again, if we can do that for one meeting, the public's going to expect that to start happening from here on out. And I don't like the idea of just having one in person for a reason like that. If you wanted to host some kind of a get together, that'd be fine. But seeing everything going on right now, you got the president with it and other things. I think we need to be very smart about how we do it, not just do it and find out that's the meeting we're voting on Dora and have 50 people show up and crammed into our council room.
Well, no, I apologize. Maybe I worded that incorrectly. I totally agree with you on that. If circumstances change or if things get better, it would just mean a lot to have it in person. And if we could do that or maybe continue that practice, but I didn't mean to make a special exception for me, but I would like to meet in person or start getting back to that if council sees it fit or if the state does or DeWine or whoever, but it would just it'd mean a lot.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it, Councilman Shuff. Trust me, I don't relish and absolutely love this role of playing man behind the curtain, trying to make sure all the technology's working either here, but just trying to be smart about it. So appreciate it though.
Councilman Leopard.
I'd like to schedule a street sidewalk and sewer committee meeting if we can. This would be a Zoom meeting. If we could have it, close to, 4 o'clock or something while Matt's still here and Dale's still here. I assume Matt will probably be the lead on RFL 2041 perpetual easement.
Yeah, Matt will be the primary person on that. You'll probably want myself, and I'm going to guess Brent's going to want to be a part of that also because of the discussion. So TSEP may have some comments just because they've worked on the project that this is leading up to that we'll be able to announce before the end of the month. But I think the key players are myself, Matt, and Brent from the internal team.
Okay. Can we do half an hour enough time?
Yeah, I would think it would be pretty quick. Yeah.
Let's do a 4 o'clock on any day that everybody's available. I'm good just about any time. Doesn't really matter to me.
I'm okay about any day myself.
If you're talking this week, I should be good any day. I need to be in Fremont by 6 on Wednesday, but that shouldn't make a difference.
Thursday good for people?
When did you say?
Thursday, the 8th.
Yeah, that's good for me.
That's good for me.
Yep.
Okay. Ken's good. Tyler?
Yeah, I can be there, or I'll be able to attend.
Okay, Dale, are you heading up the Zoom coordination?
I'll be happy to do that if you'd like.
Okay. I'd like to call a street sidewalk and sewer committee meeting to be held Thursday, October the 8th, 4 p.m. Via Zoom. purpose of the meeting will be mayor's request for legislation 20-41, additional perpetual easement, and any other business that may come before the committee.
Okay, anyone else? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Well, as I'm looking at scheduling, and I know I'll find my information this Friday, I want to set a recreation and public property meeting sometime next week because I'm hoping to go to North Carolina the following week after our meeting. And so would Thursday the 15th work?
That's fine with me.
That'd be Steve and Ken too.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I'm good. I'm good about any time.
What time did you say, Dawn?
What works for you?
We have budget hearing probably 3 or after.
Do you want to do that 4 o'clock time frame again?
Works for me.
Brent, does that work for you?
That is fine. Yeah, I'm looking at my schedule. That's good.
Is this wrecking public property?
Yes.
Okay, that's Dawn, Ken, and Dan.
Oh, that's right. Why was I thinking Steve? Sorry, Dan.
No worries. I'm gonna throw a wrench in the schedule probably, but what time were you thinking? I'm sorry.
4 o'clock on the 15th,
15th is a
Thursday.
I work that day. Unless we do after I get off, which would be like 6:30-ish.
You work Wednesday?
I don't.
Okay, everybody, would it work Wednesday at 4?
It's good for me.
Yeah, we've got a budget meeting at 3, but unless it drags much longer than expected, it should be a quicker one. So I would think we'll be good.
Okay, and Ken, you're okay? Okay. Okay, so I'd like to call a meeting of the Recreation and Public Property at 4 o'clock on October 14th to discuss acquiring property for the land bank and any other business to come before the committee.
Councilwoman Boyle?
Yes, I'd like to schedule a long community planning meeting to discuss the mayor's request for legislation of the overhaul of the city of Tiffin Public Works Design Manual. Mayor, who needs to be included? Let me start there. Who needs to be included in this meeting?
I'm going to say probably myself. I'm going to assume, Dale, you want to?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, probably myself and Matt and Brandon.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking also. Brent, I don't know. That's your.
And maybe Kevin Hughes, Mayor.
I don't think Kevin really does, but we definitely need Brent. Did you catch that, Bridget?
I was going to try to shoot if you, oh. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you just have kind of gone in and out a little. I think we lost her.
This meeting just won't end.
She's coming back.
Coming back. You back, Bridget?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm having Wi-Fi issues. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
No, okay. I was trying to schedule it for next Wednesday when Danny was off.
I'm good.
Mine shouldn't be very long, Bridget, if that helps you. And mine's at 4.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking if I could do 4:30 next Wednesday, the 14th, that would be ideal. I think I think as far as with Danny's schedule, and I'm looking at my schedule. Steve, does that work for you?
I'm good. Oh,
Okay,
Wednesday.
Mayor
Oh,
and city administrator.
I'll make it work.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
Are you sure, Steve?
I'll make it work. I'm good.
Okay, let me know if you can. Okay. And then Mayor, do you mind coordinating with, or just letting me know if that doesn't work for Matt and Brandon?
Yes, Dale and I will coordinate that. I'm in the process right now of setting up your Zoom meeting. If I click the right button, that would help. Yes, I'm setting up your Zoom meeting right now. We'll coordinate that with Matt and Brandon also. You said the 14th at 4:30 p.m.
Amazing.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
And that
Exactly.
topic was what again? I'm
So
sorry. My
I would
brain-
like to announce then a long community planning. Yeah, that's okay. It's Mayor's request for legislation number 20-43, overhaul the City of Tiffin Public Works Design Manual and any other business that may come before the committee.
Very good. Is there anything else for the good of the order? All right, I'd like to thank everybody for their patience, their participation, for all your hard work, for your dedication to the city. And we stand adjourned, and God bless you all. And Ann, you be careful tomorrow, and good luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Rich.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Night.